Man, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long, long, long time. I've said that on a number of shows. I've probably said that in like half of my intros. But I really, truly mean it with this one. And I look forward to most of the guests that I interview. Like, man, I'm so stoked to talk to that person. That's why I reach out to them to interview them, because I'm like, fuck, I really want to get to know more about their paradigm, bring them into this environment, which I think is an incredible environment to get people to really relax into themselves. And I think I have a pretty good way of making the guests comfortable sitting in coherence with each other, just to like be themselves and just let it all out, let out their entire paradigm and what they're about. But I've been really looking forward to this one. And I've been wrestling with this. I don't know if it's because you just have a really cool Australian accent, or if it's because you're actually like a really, really, really good speaker speaking about natural law and the things you speak about. And I tend to think it's the latter. That's a complete joke. But like when I was at Living Free Festival last year, when I first met you in person, it's funny because you said that was... You felt that was one of the worst talks you gave, but I was sitting next to Winner while you were talking, and he and I kept looking at each other like, dude, this dude is crushing. This dude is incredible at what he does. You really are an incredible speaker. And it's more than just speaking about something that lacks value and meaning and substance. And it's like, oh, that was a good talk, but how is it applicable to my life? And it's more about how you embody what you talk about too. Like you can tell you're living it. So I'm really stoked for this conversation, but I think it's most appropriate to start with your story and how you began to explore natural law, and we'll get into what natural law actually is.
For sure. Well, thanks for the intro. Appreciate that.
Yep.
So for me, natural law was something that, as I look back, retrospect is different from how you perceive things are as you're growing up. I was into natural law from a really young age, just without knowing what natural law was. So from the way that I was perceiving my parental unit and then my schooling unit and like the societal unit, I was really perceiving this in a unique way back then without mentorship. So a lot of what I was able to glean from that came from a lot of struggle and pain and loss and all that, because I was like on my own in that sense. But because I could see that a lot of what was around me was illusory, it really did, like, it built a lot of pain, anger, resentment, but still this innate feeling that like something's not right.
When you say illusory, like some of the societal structures, school structures, things like this?
Yeah, all of it. Just the way people were, I'm like, there's something that's not matching. There's something that's not lining up here. So in retrospect, I would say that was an illusory world versus what like you could really put your finger on as something that's innate, of value and substance, has reason, has meaning, has value. So by the time I was like 19, I'd gone from school into college, because at that stage, it's just what you do. Like I was good at sport, I was good at science, I'll do sports science. Like I'll become a physiotherapist or whatever. And then within 6 months of being at college, I was just like, man, this place is like what is this? But I was also then into personal development and starting to read books outside of the academic world, because I was quite good at academics through school and college. So then I was like, oh, you can do this other way. You can be an entrepreneur. You can get into business. You can do things outside of the system. And then at that age, I also got my first parking fine. So in Australia, you get your license around that age of leaving school, going to college. And then when I got the parking fine, I was just like, but why? And then the dollar amount, I'm like, but how? Like, who makes that amount and why? Like, how is that accountable?
Yeah.
So even from that age, I'm like questioning things. And of course, I never paid that fine. I always bring it back to that first parking fine that I never even paid, because I got myself out of it. And from there, of course, then you're getting into your adulthood, and then you're meeting the world on a different level. So now you're actually like, you're not just a kid questioning society. You're now in society as an adult. And so, yeah, I was getting into a bit of trouble in that respect. Not like with the law, so to speak, but just really rubbing people the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And without mentorship and guidance, as I said, as I was growing up, I didn't really know how to behave properly. I just knew stuff was wrong. And when I'm sure a lot of people listening to this probably resonate, like, you know stuff's wrong, but you might not know how to explain it, why it's wrong, and what to do differently. So you're just in constant friction with things.
Was it like an overt rebellious type that you were embodying at that point, or?
Some of it was, yeah. And of course, coming into as a young 20s male, your ego's in its full kind of pivotal swing.
Yeah.
So you do have a certain chip on your shoulder. You think you're right. Everyone else is wrong. You're also unbeatable. So you've got this. So then life taught me a lesson at that stage too, because I had dropped out of college. I'd gone into martial arts full time. I was learning the business side to run a club. I was supposed to come to the States and open up a club, compete on the US circuit in karate and all that sort of stuff. So then I got chronic fatigue syndrome, like in inverted commas, chronic fatigue syndrome at age 22. And then, so that was a real blow. Like that was the life sucked out of me. So now I'm also seeing from seeing the world in a way that was clearly, to me, in my opinion, illusory. I was now seeing that in myself. Like there was no life force. I was just kind of in this shell, unable to function in the world with no one around me to help or support. So then I had to really deep dive into a lot of things. So first I lent on my academic background. I'm like, science will fix this. So doctors, science, the professors I was studying under, they all went, whoosh, like no one had anything to say.
Yeah.
That's when I came across natural therapies. So I saw naturopaths and things and then got angry with them, rubbed them the wrong way. And then got into, at that stage, it was Paul Chek and holistic health. So I was like, oh, so the mind, the spirit, the body, the thoughts, the emotions, the food, the water, the breath, that all ties together. So that was my initial foray into holistic health, and had to really dig deep to find those answers, because when you've got literally nothing left, like it's life and death, you kind of got to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's when I learned about the true version versus the destructive version of autonomy. As in, I can do everything by myself. I don't need anyone. I'm this guy. Like that's what got me sick. But then I had to learn the true version of autonomy, which is no one's coming to save me. I got myself into this. If I take responsibility and lose blame, well, now I can start to get my energy and health back. So from there, it was, when people think of natural law, they probably think about the law and rights. And it's a part of that for sure. And yes, I was involved in that, which I'm sure we'll speak about as well. But I guess with this intro, I wanted to get it across that it had almost, aside from that parking fine, almost nothing to do with laws, money, debt, fines, prison, police, government. It was me. Like who and what was governing me? Where was I in debt? How was I paying fines that weren't monetary?
Mm.
I was paying with my teeth. I was paying with my blood. I was paying with all of that. Like that's what natural law was. And I learned that through losing my health. I learned that from not having a familial, as in family unit. I learned that from not having a place in society. I learned from not having my own value. Like I wasn't valued by society. I was this outcast, but that was also my identity. So before I learned about the straw man and ID, I learned about how identity can ruin you if you attach and associate with identity. So that's really my journey for natural law. From there, it became, like helping other people stand up for their rights and the way that it works in the quote unquote laws in society. But it really just began with the actual natural laws. Like, how do we work with life? So then when I said earlier about illusory, so then that's when we learn about, well, what are we even doing in life? Like what's real? What has innate substance and value, and what is fictional? What's given substance and value? We're told, we associate, we agree collectively, but in and of itself has no inherent meaning, no inherent value, no inherent purpose. And so therefore it's borrowed, it's debt. It's like a fictional reserve currency note, as opposed to something like gold that has inherent innate value given to us by God. So that's where it started.
Awesome. Wow. There's so many threads to pull on there. What would you say are some of like the key principles in discovering natural law through your navigation of this realm that you have learned and you incorporate in your teachings of natural law?
So the first one's everything's an offer. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. So if you can see everything as an offer, first of all, it gives you more power, if you want to see it that way. I try to stay away from words like power because most people in society are inherently disempowered. Mm-hmm. Like I was severely. I think we can all relate to that. And it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just that if we feel disempowered, we have to realize that the natural swing of the pendulum is to be like, all right, I'm powerful and I'm empowered, but it can become a bit of that can be a bit destructive. You can get yourself into
it's
trouble.
like the energetic embodiment of the guy who feels like a scared, helpless child that gets really, really muscular.
Yeah, the bodybuilder. Yeah,
yeah, the bodybuilder. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So, but that's a good example. Like bodybuilding can be a great expression into life if it's coming from the right energetic impetus. But when it's to hide that weak, small boy, it's like it's only can go so far and can lead to a lot of. So yeah, that's where.
What do you use in place of power then?
Embodiment.
Embodiment. I like that. Yeah,
just
I like
embodying
that.
who you are. And who you are is perfect. That's the thing. Like, you don't need to be powerful. You don't need to be like, I'm more powerful than the government. No policeman can tell me what to do, or I'm not doing what, like, you know, mum and dad, I'm not doing that. Yeah. So you don't have to be that because you're not a child. So you've grown up, you have, I guess from a natural law perspective, by virtue of being here, you are chosen and you have chosen to be here. You accepted an offer. There is an agreement or contract of some kind. There was consideration given. So we're here contractually and by agreement. It was an offer. We've accepted that. So everything that we try to do that resists that essentially dishonors the agreement. And we want to live our lives honorably, not in dishonor. That's another natural law principle, which we can discuss. But from everything is an offer, we can remove ourselves from things like blame. We can remove ourselves from like, I didn't choose this. Like, why is life so hard? It's unfair. I came in here and I can see all these wars and, you know, unfairness and evil in the world. Like, this can't be right. So when you can see things as an offer, which again, that's just an offer. Me even saying that, if somebody's listening to this, you don't have to believe that. That's an offer as well, right? So if everything's an offer, it just levels the playing field. That's how I like to, like, rather than I'm powerful, it's like, it's just embodied. It's just balanced. It's like the Taoist, right? It's just like, it's not up or down. It's just there. And once you're just there, then you can feel into who you are. It's like, and then just, it's very, I won't say easy. I'll say it's easier to pick up on the subtle messages of life, which are always there to guide us. So is this the right situation? Is this the right decision? Like, who am I today? How should I express? Not how am I told to express? So then we can see through the layers of illusion, which is programs and beliefs and traumas and what have you, that essentially keep us indebted. So then we can get out of debt and we can just come into who we are. And it's quite a wealthy life once you can get out of that program state and into the one that's more real.
Yeah. And this is where you talk about lore, right? Like, lore is the stories that you've accepted coming from society based on those programmings, based on the variety of ways we are indoctrinated to believe something. And that's the story you're attaching to your journey, your hero's journey, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Can you describe that a little bit?
Yeah. So law. So when people hear natural law, they hear LAW. LAW is an acronym. It's land, air, and water, and it implies a jurisdiction. And implied is in like underlined, italics, bold, implied. It doesn't actually mean anything. It's a jurisdiction. So a lot of times jurisdiction is claimed and never questioned. So like, I have a badge and a hat and a card. So I have jurisdiction over you. I set the rules. If you break them, here's the penalties. That's a jurisdiction, right? But LAW is land, air, water. So jurisdiction of the land, the air, the sky, the waters. But then law is actually a synonym, which is LORE. Sounds the same, but spelled differently. And the LORE is the story. So that's the story of life. So the breath, the word, the creation, that's all through law. So then there is the natural law, but then there are the inverted laws, the stories like, I'm not good enough. This world's unfair. There's too much evil. I have to do this today, or I have to behave a certain way. And like, how many more can you name? Like, thousands of different laws that are at odds with the natural laws. So as we can uncondition ourselves from those kind of laws, we can really set our law, because the law is meant to be a co-creation, as in we are co-creating with life. There are many offers there too. You can say that we have our blueprints, which is true. We can say that there's maybe fate, which is true. There's all of that's true, but what I think people miss is that it's a co-creation. Yeah. And as we're not embodied, we don't know who we are. We are run from a program or a law that's not ours. But as we can step into our law, it's not above anything or below, it's just co-creation. So then that's how fate can change, or our blueprint can be transcended. We can become more than that. And the other thing I would do, Alec, is just when I speak about this, I usually caution people, like, just know who you are and be where you're at, because you find out about this sort of stuff and then you can just start avoiding everything and just bypassing everything. Oh, cool. Well, I'll just be this then, and I don't have to grow up. Because a lot of us still have 5-year-olds trapped in us when we were like, don't you do that? Or this sort of stuff. Very hard to grow up from that age. So I'm 44. I've still got a 4-year-old in me in certain emotional aspects, So like, I'm not going to pretend I'm like the God force co-creating completely in this life. So, but I do look for clues. Like, in some ways that is true. I have co-created in many ways outside of the norm, the societal accepted norm. But there's other ways that I know that I'm still programmed. So like, the disempowered part of us will feel like, okay, cool, that's my way out. But the way forward is not like trying to climb out of stuff. It's to go in and to really like, I want to have this experience. And that transcends. So you're no longer trying to get out of anything. It's one of the biggest questions I ever get asked. How do I get out of this? I got to find, how do I get out of it? Or I'm told I can't go here. How do I get out of it? I'm like, wrong question. I ask how you got into it.
Yeah.
Ask what you can glean from this gift of an experience. And then transcending that is what will like quote unquote get you out of it without getting you out of it.
I've heard you talk about that before too. And I get every time you talk about this, I'm like, man, I completely agree with that. And this can be a really hard thing for people to accept, especially if they've dealt with something incredibly traumatic. But I think given my childhood, can say this with some level of so-called authority, maybe expertise, experience, whatever you want to call it. Experience might be the right word there, is that the so-called bad things that happen to me in my life that show up in my experience are useful things to teach me or to push me deeper into embodiment about myself. And for someone who's dealing currently with a chronic illness, or maybe someone who just lost someone close to them, maybe they just lost a child, that can be really, really, really difficult to hear. Like, you may not want to accept that, and that's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like you said, it's just an offer. But in your experience, do you think that that is overwhelmingly, if not exclusively true, that things show up because the way you are currently constituted is attracting that situation? And I know there's a lot of context there, because I could see where someone like, I didn't attract my fucking son dying. You know what I mean? Or it's a means to teach you or to push you deeper into embodiment regarding who you truly are.
Absolutely. I have not seen evidence to the contrary to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and while I guess if we're talking about things that might be difficult for someone, we can make it a little more difficult, which is how selfish of an act it can be to just, I didn't call that in. But it's like, what about the other party? Like, if you lost somebody, for example, what about their experience? You know, so like we often have this entropy of I, and then entropy and regression is all about I. And then it's like, well, if things are taken from me, I'll give less. And then if it's all just regression, but that's not how life works. Life wants to continually expand like that. So it's just a fundamental, and nothing's wrong with that either. Like, I was a huge victim for like 15 years before I pulled myself out of anything and suddenly got healthier.
You think it serves a purpose for a time, like being in that victim state?
It does serve a purpose, absolutely. It makes you stronger. It's part of the lessons that we've got to learn. So when you can extract yourself from the egoic attachment to life, which is your identity, and then this is all happening to me, and it's me, and I don't deserve this, and why do I have to feel pain? And like, there's a few natural laws that just make their way into everything else, like self-help, motivation, new age stuff and whatever, but they're all inherently true as long as you don't misrepresent them. And one is that life doesn't give you anything you're not capable of handling. Like, it just doesn't work in a way that's different to that if you can look at it from any other perspective. Like, take yourself out of being a human being. Like, you put yourself in the creator's shoes, for example, and just go like, is that actually fair? Is that benevolent in any way? And what I like to do is I encourage the way we ask questions. That's a natural law principle. So the art of questions is part of natural law. Like, you're really good with this in your work. Like, if somebody makes a claim, it's like, well, how do you know that? Like, where's the evidence for that? How, like, it's backing things up. So we tend to not want to make claims. We ask questions in natural law, for example. So the way that, even with everything's an offer, rather than, if you've got an issue with that, rather than say, that's not true, or there's no way that can be true, and you're looking for reasons not, like, look for reasons it could be. And if you're doing that, it sets different frameworks within your own being. First of all, you've got a more humble nature just by even asking the question, well, could everything be an offer? How could that be an offer? Like, if this was an offer right now, what would that look like?
Yeah.
Like, all you're doing is opening yourself up. And if anybody does that, like, everybody feels the same thing. They feel lighter. Mm-hmm. They feel less restriction. Yeah. They feel better in every way, as opposed to the regression entropy model, which is just, you will feel tighter, you'll feel less expressive, you'll feel more just burdened by everything. So yeah, it's just, you just got to look at the result as well. Like, what makes you feel a certain way? And then that's kind of your answer. Like, beyond logically understanding anything, like, oh, it's an offer because of this. And if it's not that, it's like, how does it make you feel? And if at this stage it doesn't make you feel good, it's like, that's your experience. It's cool. But for me, and I've learned from other people, I look to people older and wiser than me. No one's ever given me anything other than everything's an offer in their own different way, like from a Taoist master to a Qigong, like psychics, like people who are like beyond, like how can you even do that sort of stuff? They all say the same thing. They just use different words.
Yeah.
But it all means the same thing. Everything's an offer.
Yeah, it's interesting because I could think about that from both a legal context, like contractual, like the state giving you various offers to contract with them, but also from an energetic context. And I think it really does apply universally, like even offer for your attention, offer for you to step back into your fear-based conditioning because someone just triggered you with something that they just said. Can you like sort of paint how that shows up across the entire landscape of literally every single interaction between beings or you with respect to reality?
As an offer, you mean? Or?
Yeah, yes. Just like how that can show up, like with the state versus like energetically.
Sure. I guess starting within is the easiest because everyone can relate more to that. So even just how you feel today and the language you use. So, like, oh, I've got to go to work today. It's like, that's an offer. Because if you ask, like, how can that be an offer? It's like, well, do I have to go to work today? It's like, yeah, well, I do, because if I don't, I can't pay the bills, or I can't. Yeah, but do you have to? So if you really break that down, you ask 2 or 3 times, most people can't get past 2 or 3.
Yeah.
If you ask why, but why? Well, because of this, but why? Well, because of this, but why? Because like you can't get past 2 or 3.
Right.
Usually you don't have a real answer. You have an ingrained program response. It's not an answer. There's no truth in it, because I could, for example, not pay my bills today. And then what? Oh, well, then I'll be evicted. And then what? Well, I'll go somewhere else. And then what? I'll find a way to make a living. And then what? I don't know. It's just like, but when you regress, it's like, so do you have to in that first instance? No, you don't. Like there are consequences to that, but you still don't have to.
Yeah.
So as soon as you unbind yourself from have to, you're free.
Yeah.
Like the consequences will be what they are. You will write that law. Like if you're embodied with life and have the experience and you don't try to resist it and mold it or whatever, you're free no matter what. Even if you're behind bars for 2 or 3 days, you're still free. But while you're living in like a nice place with a nice job and doing a nice life, but you have to, you're a slave. Like you're not free. You just can't be by the nature of you haven't even asked the question. So that's why I like to start with the individual. It's like, I have to do it, but do I have to? So then you can even just change the language. So I love this exercise to do with people, even if it's going to work and it's something that you're like, you know what, this isn't my purpose. I don't really feel this is my purpose, but I'm doing this as a man, for example, like I'll just speak from a man's point of view to support my family. It's like there's honor in that for sure. Like you're sacrificing part of what you would maybe like to do because you have the role and the duty to support a family. And there's absolute honor in that for sure. But then there's a level beyond that with knowing, like a real knowing that you don't have to. Mm-hmm. You change that, whatever part of that you can. Like it could be honorable or dishonorable. That's another part of the equation. But the fact is you don't have to. So then instead of saying I have to go to work today, you could say I choose to go to work today. Like that gives you at least a little bit more empowerment because it's a choice, and it's true, it is a choice. So then you can say, well, I'm actually lucky to go to work today. And then you can go, I'd love to go to work today. I'm blessed to go to work today. Like even that language for yourself, like how does your body resonate as a result?
Well, dude, that's what's coming up for me too, is I could see where someone would push back and be like, why does it matter? You're still ended up going to work, blah, 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 blah. But it does matter. It matters completely because it completely shifts your whole orientation and how you are approaching that day. Like, oh, I am deliberately choosing each of these things because I want to, because you have asked those deep questions and you've come to understand that I'm accepting this offer to do this. It makes so much sense.
But here's where it gets more interesting. Now you get to renegotiate the offer because now you're renegotiating the terms. So you look at a contract or an agreement, it has terms and conditions, right? So now it's like, okay, well, I choose, I'm blessed to go to work today. Under what terms and conditions? Well, this is how I'm going to apportion my energy. No one's taking it over here. No one's taking it over there. I'm putting it here, and then I'm going to reinvest it back into me. So within a couple of months of that mindset or that way of being, you might have actually seen an opportunity that was never there before. It's like, wow, I don't have to be here in this department, like start small in the same paradigm. I could actually take over or start, like I'll talk to the boss, I'll talk to the owner of the company. I see room for another department. And they're like, you should head that department. You just created a whole, as an entrepreneur within a job, you've just created something new. And that's the act and the art of creation. That's another principle of natural law, is that if we're created in the image of the creator, for example, we're creative beings. We are creator beings by nature, but we shut that off with our conditioning, right? Like, what child isn't creative, you know? We neuter ourselves out of that, or accept the offer to be cut off from that.
Yeah.
So so just even within that paradigm, we can find so many ways to be creative. And now the job's not like, it's not what it was yesterday. It's changed. Like, we're changing reality in real time. And that's when you just said, people will say it doesn't matter. And then you say, but it does matter. And that's like the nature of the word. Well, this matters. This matters a lot. Well, that turns into matter. It's like it materializes into something. And for some people, like I watched your interview with Paul, for example, like that's how a lot of tumors and stuff can form, is because we create matter in the body with what matters or doesn't matter in the psycho-emotional body. So it's like, it's all this stuff lines up. So then when you can realize, okay, well, so if it was just an offer, my choice, I have choice in this, I can change the terms and conditions. You've got a new agreement. You're not who you were yesterday. You're resonating in a different level. Life materializes in a different way around you. And if you can take that small example, you can go, oh, so where is my limit with that now? Like, I can see everything's an offer if the state's giving me a parking fine, but no way if I'm going to lose a loved one. There's no way. So it's like, well, there's your limit. We all have limits. Like we all have a limit to everything's an offer. Like, you know, like what would happen? You can do this as an exercise for yourself, but most people have a limit. So what happens is, as those limits start to lift, you're just becoming more of an alchemist in the world, because you know that you're an unlimited being, unlimited creative potential. And it's only the negative limiting beliefs and mindsets that just know the world's like this is how it works, that has to happen this way. So to continue to answer your question, outside of this individual experience in the world, let's say a policeman tells you to do something. First question should be, do I have to? For yourself. Then you can verbalize that. Do I have to? Well, yeah. Why? But how? Says who?
Right.
But do I have to? Answer the question. It's a yes or a no. It's one or the other. Well, I'd like you to. No, it's a yes or a no. And do I have to? But the state says, as you said, do I have to? It's a yes or a no. That's the third time I've asked. Which one is it? If I don't, I'm on my way. Like, just simple questions. Do I have to? Like, a lot of people don't even realize they never asked that question. For a lot of things, they accepted the offer. And because they have this construct or paradigm of this is what it is, they never even questioned and opened up this entire other 359 degrees of possibility. Mm-hmm. They locked into the one offer, and now they opened into that door. Now they're in this room and they wonder why they're stuck in it. It's like, you walked through that door. That's the thing. That's the number one mistake. You never had to walk through that door. You had ample opportunity for any other number of doors to create, to open, to walk through that was already there. It's unlimited. Mm-hmm. But we lock ourselves in with our perception, which is construct of the mind, which is why so many words in the English language end with ment, which is mind. Government, control of mind. Element, of his or her mind. Firmament, firm, rigid of the mind. Well, so many words end with ment. It's like Topher would say, we live in a temporal realm. And a lot of that's true. Like, we're creating a lot of this through here. And as our perceptions shift, so does the material world. Yeah. Did I even answer your question? Sorry.
I don't know, but that was awesome. I think you did. One question I have with respect to that is, when it comes to offers, like there are offers that we are, you could say, consciously aware of, that even if we start adopting this approach, we're like, okay, we're looking at every single thing as an offer, right? I think there's like a deeper layer in that, and I'd love to hear you talk about this, like when it comes to tacit agreements or like assent versus consent. And I've talked about that before, like the difference between like directly consenting to a contract or somewhere where you didn't even know you were contracting with something, but you acted like you knew you were contracting, which is assent, as I've come to understand it. So where does that play into, both in terms of like physical contractual relationships with any entity, the state, another man, woman, whatever, but also energetic contracts, like things that are you are giving your the currency of your awareness to?
For sure. So all of it comes down to agency, and all of it literally just comes down to acting in the capacity of. So everything you just mentioned, so consent is conscious decision to agree. Assent is the unconscious decision to agree. So both of them can be going along with something. Both of them can be acting in the capacity of. So if we take assent, unconscious decision. It's kind of like, well, I never knew. It's just kind of like how things are. Never questioned it. Never knew that. You just don't have any conscious knowing that you are consenting or that you can remove consent. So there's your assent, but you're acting in the capacity of, because you're performing the action, right? But you still do that with consent as well, because you are consciously aware of it. But even if you're resisting, you're still acting in the capacity of. You might not want to. You might feel it's an injustice. You might know, oh, but this isn't right and there's something wrong with it and whatever, but you're still doing it. You're still acting in the capacity of. So essentially that's the real answer, is we act in the capacity of. Now, if we look at that energetically, we have who we are. And I like to talk about having jurisdiction of ourself. So we have, like, juris means of law or of right, and diction is by definition a speaking or writing style. So jurisdiction, that's those two words together. But when we talk about it in terms of like sovereignty or ownership or just, keeping the power, however you want to see that, we want to really start with ourselves. And there's something called allodial title. So if you have allodial title of your property, you have the land, which most people don't have in their property titles, for example. Right. You also own the airspace above and to a certain degree below, as in like the minerals in the earth down to a certain degree. So you actually have a proper title. So I like to talk about having a allodial title of us. You have your inner, you have your body, and you have the airspace around you. But this is a way for somebody to go, okay, I can kind of contextualize that. So therefore, no one can come in without your consent, and there are penalties if they do. But also, nothing can come out. Like, nothing can be mined. Nothing can be taken from you unless you give it away. So that's like your title for yourself. You have jurisdiction of your space. So if you can see it that way, you're like, okay, well, I'll start there. So the way we want to look at, actually, I want to make sure I just keep this on one particular track. So in relation to what you asked, if we start there, feed that to me again. If we just start from that perspective.
Consent versus assent, like how that works.
So basically what happens is, if we are in our space like that, and we have title, we have jurisdiction, we have ownership, we have everything, sovereignty, whatever words people want to use. Well, how are we acting? And this comes now down to standing. So if we have our own standing, it's us and whatever put us here. So I like to use the word creator because just generic, that could mean God, life, universe, universal life force, anything like that. Anything that's of a pure creative source of things, where we come from. So in the standing or the hierarchy of things, there is that force or energy, which I just collectively call the creator. Then there's us. It goes creator, then man. So it's that hierarchy. Now, below man is, we could call it like government, and then government create entities, which is person, driver, ratepayer, citizen, taxpayer.
I'm glad that you went here because this is where I was wanting to go next. So this is perfect.
So what happens is, when man then forgets who he is and then acts in the capacity of a driver or a citizen or whatever, it's like you can't really complain, because what's happened is, whether it's consent or assent, you are acting in the capacity of a subject.
Yeah.
Whereas a man or a woman who has this allodial title of themselves is just like constantly in communion with the creator or universal life force or their essence or their soul. It's like, what's speaking there? What's the direction from that? Like, what's the offer there? So that's of a higher standing and of a higher nature than any other offer. And those are also within, those are our programs, which is bouncing off of this happens and I just react like that. Or somebody says this word and that means this, so I'm angry now, or I'm this, or like you're the enemy, and we start seeing enemies we can point out outside of ourselves. Like, there's no enemy outside of yourself. Yeah. Evil is just the mirror image of live. It's like, we're not alive. So in that standing, we're alive. Once we step out of that standing, we're no longer living. We're in the mirror. We're like an image of, a reflection of, a representation or representation of this God-given, God-man relationship. So that's really when people think like, yeah, but I didn't consent to that, or I'm not like, yeah, but you're acting in the capacity of, and we will continue to do that. And it's not a bad thing. Whenever I say these things, I'm just talking about like the lessons, how they're like structured. But then there's the human element and the human experience of that. And we all do it. I still do it. Like, especially as you get into close relation with chosen relationships and that, they'll really test and challenge you. And it's like, I am reactive like that. I do that. I say things like that, And so that just shows you, okay, like I can handle an offer from like a friggin' woke. I'm like, whatever.
Right.
But yeah, it's like, good for you. Well, like, that's just an offer. I don't have to, there's no reaction. There's just that you already have a standing above that because you can see the program, you can see the control, you can see whether or not who they really are. God didn't make that, like in that sense, you know?
Yep.
So it's like, you can see, it's easy to see. So it's easy to have your action, not reaction. You can maintain your state, doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's easy. And then from there, you can, as you get more experience, you can do that with the state. You see a police officer, you just see the badge, you see the corporation, you see a human being somewhere behind those first few layers. You see it all and it's like, It's like, it doesn't change who you are. But then like what's controlling you? What's the real enemy? It's nothing outside of you. It's all these programs within. So those, as you start to unwind those, you're not bouncing off of these things anymore. You're getting closer to that pure connection with what made you or your chosen agreement and contract here. So then it's just like, all right, what am I acting in the capacity of? Am I acting in the capacity of a man who has full choice over everything, consent, assent, whatever? And if you're still not sure, you just ask, what am I acting in the capacity of? Because before you go to the next question, when people wonder how could this be? It's like when man forgets who he is and he's no longer acting as a man, he's acting as a subject, which is a slave, an entity, a ward of the state. What can be done, what could never be done, I should say, start there, to a man lawfully under God's laws can be done and is fair to do to a subject legally, because they're two totally different worlds. And if you're agreeing to being a subject, you're treated as a subject, and it's fair because a subject's a piece of paper. You can't harm a piece of paper, but you can harm a man or a living being. So that's like where it's people are, what the? It's like, it's pretty simple once you start breaking it down, but that's how you can go, okay, it is fair that you're locked up, you're fined, this is taken away. It's happening to a piece of paper because you're acting in that capacity.
Acting in the capacity of the piece of paper.
Yeah. So when you remember who you are and you start acting as a man, which takes a lot more responsibility, a lot more morality, a lot more like honor, a lot more everything to embody that, which is a huge like undertaking in life because it's so easy to be that other thing.
Dude.
And we're not even talking about the state here. We're talking about our own internal program,
100%.
Which can be ancestral. Like my grandfather's grandfather, like that guy was a molester or something. It's like, that's in me.
Right.
Like that is. And if I can accept that, then I can change it. If I can't accept that, I resist it. I'm like, there's no way I have that in me. Right. It's like, well, just watch the behaviors play out and your life won't change.
100%. That's the essence of shadow work right there. Like
exactly,
it really simplifies it like that. Man, I love everything you said there. I wrote down a few notes because I want to revisit some of them later. But what I want to talk about next, because you sort of pulled on that thread, is essentially this. Like, you know, I've dived pretty deep into a lot of alternative approaches to law, common law, commercial law, equity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what I'm really finding, the more that I dig in this space, is that a lot of the people, and even a lot of the predominant teachers in this space, you can just tell, have no clue who they truly are. And they're coming from a position of either fear of, oh, look, this is what the government might do to you unless you reclaim your straw man, correct your status, or they have no fucking right over me, coming from that like sort of rageful side of things, which is just a outward defense mechanism because they're actually incredibly fearful internally. And there's very few people who are truly like embodied with that. Now, all that being said, I think that there could be some positive effect to doing some of those things. And it depends on the context of where you live. It depends on a variety of contextual elements there, right? But if you are choosing the forms, the paperwork over the substance, or if you're pushing that forth rather than understanding who you truly are, it will never fucking work. And I would even argue that when you truly understand who you are and you're acting in the capacity of that, the paperwork doesn't even fucking matter in most cases. What would your response be to that?
Yeah, 100% agree. Yep. I mean, there's obviously like subtleties with that, but as an essence of what you just said, yes, 100% agree. It's always substance over form. And to me, I liken it to, imagine you could get yourself a piece of paper that gave you diplomatic immunity, or like that's like a misnomer term, but just what people would contextualize that as. And you're just cruising around. You're like, yeah, no one can touch me. I'm above the law and no cop can. If I get pulled over, I just show them this. If I'm walking through an airport, I'll just show them this. And it's like, okay, cool. What happens when someone takes that piece of paper off you? What happens if you take a whiz in the toilet and it falls in and you're like, oh no, there's my piece of paper. Like, where are you now? Where's your standing? You're a weak child without that. That's who you really are. So what you really want to be is somebody who is that piece of paper, who is that diplomatic immunity. Now, does that mean that paperwork has no value? No, not at all. Like, it definitely has value, but
Totally.
you said it perfectly. It's like, if you're relying on that, and more importantly, like, where's it coming from?
Yes.
Like, you can put any action and any word into the world, but what you imbue that with, they're called transmitting utilities. So your birth certificate, a lot of people are on this bandwagon of chucking that in. It's like, all right, but let's take a step back. Instead of going, that's what enslaves us, that's our straw man. It's like, no, what is it really? What it really is a transmitting utility. Okay, what's a transmitting utility? Well, a transmitting utility is essentially a vessel which transmits stuff. What does it transmit? Oh, well, that's a good question. What can that transmit? Like credits, currency. What else can it transmit? Names. What else can it transmit? A trust. What else can it transmit? Oh, those are good things, aren't they? It's like, I could use those. Yeah, you can. So rather than burn it and throw it back at the state and then think you're this free man on the land, it's like, what does free mean? What's a man? What land do you think you're on? Yeah, like, just get to know who you are. And then it's like, okay, well, I can use a birth certificate. If I take more of a, if you see yourself as the CFO of your name or your business, well, you got a lot more control over things like birth certificates, licenses, and all that. So it's like, how do you get into that? Why? Are you outsourcing? Are you accepting benefits and privileges rather than just standing as a man? It's totally fine to have passports, licenses, birth certificates, bank accounts, if you know who you are. If you don't know who you are, yes, those will, there's different stages. There's been totally unaware that you're being controlled by that, but living a great life nonetheless. Then there's waking up to it and being like, oh no, that enslaves us all. We've got to throw that all away.
You know, that brings up a really important point. I've thought about this so much lately, is that the so-called normies who are like fully asleep in most cases seem to be living and crushing much better than the people who have woken up and are like frantically like pointing out, look at what the NWO, like, oh fuck, they're coming for us. Look, that dude's controlled opposition. He's misleading us. We're all screwed. I would much rather be around a normie than that individual.
Absolutely.
And that normie, so-called normie, has it way more together than that individual.
Mm-hmm. One is resonating in a position or from a position of fear, lack, disempowerment, has regressed to the child. And it's actually a fairly natural progression. It's like the stage 1, 2, and 3 of waking up.
I've been there too. I'm just saying though, like I don't know, man. I think like the stage that I'm in, I get so frustrated with that type of people, and you come across so much of them really online rather than in person. I don't come across many in person at all, but
I've come across heaps in
person. Oh,
yeah.
Boy, man.
But here's the thing is like, okay, so for me, what I realized that was for me was my test. Because, for example, during COVID with all the masks and stuff, I don't know what it was like around here, but in Australia, it was pretty bad. And
no matter where you went in Australia, right? It was bad pretty much.
No. So in your like in your more city areas or built up areas, it was like, pretty full on.
Okay.
As soon as you went, an hour west, people are like, what? There's what?
Okay, it was the same thing here. It was the same thing here, man. Like,
so people had this impression that it's like the whole world's in this state of whatever. But if you went an hour outside of it, everyone's like, what are you talking about? We've never even heard of that.
Right.
And the police are just like, what?
Yeah. Didn't give a shit. What? Totally, man.
So it's not, this is again how the mind is so easily controlled. Like, I'll just give you a real quick example. We'll get back to what we're talking about. So apparently that pop chick went to the moon recently, and there's all these other things you see like K-pop, and they got like 18 billion views, and it's just like this abomination of what it would mean to be a human being. Like, that's the epitome of just like, you're in hell. Like, you're literally, and you see like, how does that get 18 billion views? And I do something that I think has some value in it. I put it on Facebook, it gets 2 likes. Like, come on, like, this world's that's most people's story that are in that waking up stage. But then it's like, have you even asked whether or not that's real? Are there 18 billion views, or does Google have the ability to add as many views as they want to that on YouTube? So it's a perception thing. It's like, maybe there's 18 billion true views. Maybe people love that stuff. Maybe people are that far gone, but maybe Google put that there. Maybe it's created that way to give you the impression it's a losing battle. We're all doomed. What does that do to you and your being? That's most people in that truther world. Like they're constantly seeing things at face value and then just being like, well, we're all doomed. Okay, cool. So what you're supposed to do from waking up is getting more empowered, then more empowered, able to affect the world around you with the coherence and whatever. But what you do is you come out of that and take the offer that it's like way worse than you thought. Now you're like, whoosh, now you're below what you were before. So now that's how evil, which is, in my opinion, it's a deception, it's illusion. It's not like it's so bad, it's just deceptive. So, but deceptive is how you get rid of people. You just use deception. People get rid of themselves. That's why like people don't really understand. Like, but there's so many wars and there's so much this. It's like, but there's deception. Deception is what makes people act in that way, and so that's how we get rid of ourselves. So if we were to like everything was to fall apart in society, it's not the New World Order. I forget what all those. What's that one called with the map?
I don't know, Agenda 2030. It's funny because I was just creating a slide for Confluence because this is literally what I'm going to talk about on at my talk, the opening slide at Confluence. It has like Agenda 2030, Agenda 21, whatever the other one, the globalist agenda, New World Order, and then on the next slide I'm like, what's your agenda?
Exactly.
What's your agenda?
Yeah.
That's what matters most. And how many people in the so-called truther space are so focused and can recount every single detail of what the various supposed agendas are, but have no fucking clue what their own agenda is.
So they're now a created character in that game.
Yeah.
So that's a lore, that's a story. Now they are a created character in that game. Now what you create, you own. So they created it. Now you're putting currency into that. Guess who owns you? You're owned by that story, that agenda, that lore.
Yeah.
So all you have to do is just change that. Like if you don't have an Agenda 25, well, good luck not falling into somebody else's Agenda 2025 because yours is of a lower standing. It has less capacity, less standing, everything. And when you see it like that, which you can, it's very easy then to be able to like be a lot more empowered. But when I say it's easy to do it, but will most people rise to that occasion? Probably not. That's why in the Matrix they gave that example of the dude who just wants to take the whatever pill gets him to eat the steak.
Yeah.
He's like, look, I get it, but it's too freaking hard.
Yeah.
I'd rather and there's nothing wrong with that either. Like if people are at that stage and they're like, you know what, that's me. It's like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like have that experience and love that experience. Like don't resist it. Don't have shame or guilt about it. Like just really have that experience. And by doing that, you can actually transcend that super fast. You don't know where that'll take you, but you can almost script where it will take you if you have shame, guilt, and resistance around it. So the reason I brought that up is just because of this whole government. It's not like just the government of the United States or Australia or Canada or whatever. It's like that's everything is there to control the mind. So if you don't allow that because you have that choice, you have agency. And in my course, like I always talk about the mirror images. So we want agency, which is like how we are able to affect ourselves into the world. But if we don't have agency, we will then experience more agents in commerce, more of the state, more nannying, more control, because we don't have agency. Those two work together. So it's like it works on so many levels, but then now I've actually forgotten what I segued into that whole,
It's
like
all
how
good,
do you know? Like how do you know that that's even real? How do you know the world's really that bad? Because we're talking about masks and stuff. So with like people thought the world was just screwed. Everyone's doing it. Everyone's wearing this. Everyone's getting jabbed. It's like the whole 98% of the world is whatever. And then the remaining, which is truthers, are like, but everyone else will be getting got by the shedding. Like you can't escape it. They're going to get us all. I'm like, who's going to get what? Like what kind of story are you running in your head? And so like that's how in some people's mind, which is how they experience reality, because al is a prefix, means of God. Ality is like the real thing, but then is like rewind, reverse, replay.
Wow.
So reality isn't quote unquote real. Reality is the projection, the holographic, whatever.
I did not know the etymology of that. Wow.
Yeah. So that's why
Makes so much sense.
in reality, everyone's doomed. Everyone's being got by the agenda. But then people don't ask the questions like, what agenda? Whose agenda? Do I have an agenda? Like, so immediately you change your standing.
Yeah.
You separate from that reality. Now you come back to your essence or closer to it. So, oh, okay, well, I can reimagine. And even that word, magi, the magic that I am, it's like, okay, that can create a different reality already, a different standing, different frequency spectrum to experience the world. Because we're here to have the experience no matter what. You may as well be a creator.
right.
in the experience rather than a character, like an extra. Like, oh, got to sit here for 5 hours holding the friggin', boom, my shoulders. It's like, you can. You don't have to.
Hey y'all, I'm here with Melissa Kupsch from Remedy Academy of Homeopathy. We are so stoked here at the Way Forward to be partnering with Melissa and Remedy in order to spread the message of homeopathy across the world and also to partner on the eventual development of healing centers across the United States.
People are pretty quickly coming to realize that frequency is the future of medicine. We are witnessing the great resurgence of homeopathy right now. We're really moving away from that suppressive medical model. Whether it's for eczema, asthma, hormones, fertility, anxiety, depression, trauma, whatever it is, it all starts as energy in the person's field first. If we change our field, we can completely change our life. Our 2-year academy is open worldwide to anyone who wants to become a homeopath. We've got 5 lecturers and we currently have over 500 students enrolled, which is record numbers in our field. A career in homeopathy is amazing for anyone who wants flexibility in their work and who wants to be valuable in creating this new world. We have stay-at-home parents enrolled, we have ex-medical professionals, grandparents signed up who want to learn how to heal their grandchildren and pass on that invaluable knowledge. We even have husband and wife teams. So my husband enrolled in the course with no prior knowledge of health as a background, and he is loving it.
Kylie is also enrolled as well, so my partner is, and she's so stoked to become a homeopath and to be helping to spread this message across the world.
The thing that we hear from so many of our students is, I found my thing. Homeopathy is the key. We harness frequencies from nature and we alter the field of all creations. So if anybody wants to join us or they want to know more about it, they can visit our website.
Yeah, and all that information will be in the show notes. So if you want to learn more about Remedy Academy, also RMDY Collective, also some of the homeopathic products that they have, please just head to the show notes. All of that will be listed there. Most healthcare today operates on an outdated mechanistic model, treating the body like a battlefield rather than a self-healing system. You wait months for an appointment only to receive a rush diagnosis that labels you rather than truly understanding your unique health. Even in holistic health, many practitioners rely on endless lab tests and supplement protocols, addressing symptoms instead of the root cause. And the result? Another prescription or supplement regimen that merely suppresses or masks symptoms rather than facilitating true healing, whether the imbalance was physical, emotional, energetic, or a mix of all three. And that's why Dr. Tom Cowan co-founded the RMDY Clinic, to offer something radically different. As one of the most respected natural health doctors in the world, Dr. Cowan has spent decades challenging conventional medicine and advancing a deeper understanding of human biology, water, and natural health. His work isn't just about rejecting the mainstream, it's about offering a more truthful, biologically coherent approach for healing. The RMDY Clinic recognizes that health isn't about fighting disease, it's about restoring balance. You're not a diagnosis, you're an individual with a unique story, and healing should honor that. With virtual consultations available worldwide, the clinic offers a flat-rate monthly membership that gives you direct access to practitioners who take the time to actually listen. Members also get exclusive health live streams, a resource library, and live sessions covering everything from biofield tuning and breathwork to movement and meditation, all designed to support whole body healing. And if you're not ready for a membership, you can book a one-time appointment, sign up for an enrichment-only membership for the healing modalities alone, or schedule a free connection session with one of the care team members to see how the RMDY Clinic can help in your specific situation. This isn't about keeping you dependent on doctors. It's about making you sovereign over your health. Head to newbiologyclinic.com and use code THEWAYFORWARD, and that's spelled The Way, F-O-R-W-A-R-D, for $50 off account activation, or just head to the show notes for more info. If you're a member of The Way Forward, email hello@thewayforward.com for $150 off. Your body already knows how to heal, and RMDY Clinic helps you remember. So, like, in practical terms, how would you deal with an agent of the state who is showing up, presumably to teach you about yourself, or because you're attracting that into your space, or because you just need a deeper lesson to push you into deeper embodiment? How do you deal with those situations, especially because, like, over the course of 2020 onward, people who see the illusions of the world especially when they're first waking up, are likely attracting a lot more of that. But just the way this realm is, playing out right now, there seems to be a lot more confrontations in that level. So how do you practically approach a situation like that?
So the first thing is you obviously need a little bit of knowledge, because otherwise you're kind of just going up against a situation without ever having trained or rehearsed it or whatever. So your general emotional reactions are going to be at the forefront, and you're going to be reactive rather than acting in your capacity. So you do need that. I will acknowledge that at the start. But to answer the question, like once you've got a little bit of that, then it's the lines of questions. You don't want to make claims. Like, let people talk, let people make claims, let people be aggressive. The more aggressive they are, the more claims they make, the more forthright they are, the better it is for you, because they're throwing a lot of heat out there and it turns into currency. And when you know how to manage that currency, it stacks in your favor.
Yeah.
So for example, the state's trying to put you in a corner or make you do something or extract something from you. The first thing you can do is just go like, you know what, we can do anything you want, anything, as long as you can show me where I have to, where I'm contractually bound to do that. Show me where, why, and how I have to. I'm more than happy to perform. This is what we call a conditional acceptance. So we don't refuse, resist, say no straight away. Like, that's cool.
It's like renegotiating the offer.
It's like looking at what the terms and conditions are, a meeting of the minds, like all the elements of
the contract,
fairness and capacity, all of that sort of stuff. So we're really just looking at that. We're questioning the validity of what somebody's saying. And that's step one. But the reason I got to teaching this stuff is because I took it to the next stage, which is like, if it turns out that you're soliciting right now, or you're lying to me in any capacity, or you're trying to violate my rights in any way, shape, or form, there's a penalty for that, and you're going to pay. And as soon as people get that, they're like, oh, I don't have any further questions. See you later.
And just back off.
Yeah, not always. I don't want to give people the impression that you just say that, because it's not the words either. You don't
definitely changes their energy dynamics.
Definitely changes it. But like we were talking about before, it's not the words you say.
Yep.
And for the context with that, I always say to people, it's like, imagine a man approaching a woman, and it's like, he's just not the right guy, but he's watched Fabio, he's watched Don Juan, he's like learnt the lines, and he's like, hello, and he just says this stuff, and she's like, get the away from me. Or he could just be just the right guy, and he's just like, whatever, doesn't even say anything. He still gets the woman. Mm-hmm. It's because it's not in the words, it's in who you are. And then the words are the transmitting utility or the vessel. What's the energy in those? Like, what are they transmitting? And what's the currency exchange there? So it's not just what you say, but when you learn, it's like, okay, how does this work? Okay, the first thing is a claims made, or ask the question, do I have to? Make some separation with that. Verbalize how you're feeling even. So it's like, excuse me, I'm feeling really threatened right now, or you're making me really nervous. I need you to back off. So then just with a little bit of knowledge, it's like, if you're in the capacity of the state, your own policies, the laws and statutes that govern your position say you are not to put somebody under duress unless it's like meeting force. So if I was pulling out a gun on you and I'm like, get away from me, whatever, well, you can pull a gun on me now. You can use force, you can use whatever. Right. But if I'm just being myself, you can't put me under duress unless there's a reason for it. Like, what's the reasonable excuse, or what's the cause? Like, there has to be all of this to be able to sustain your behavior towards me. So you can just be yourself and just call the other out on what they're doing. It seems like you're being really aggressive. Is there a reason you're being aggressive towards me right now? Like, that's this unspoken elephant in the room a lot of the time, and people never call it out. They're just like, you can't do that. I'm this guy. I'm a free man. I have rights. I. And it's like, who are you? You're just like, where is this enemy? You're your own enemy. Let's say they're being a bit like out of line. It's like, excuse me, I really think you're being out of line right now. Is there somewhere in your policy you can show me you have the right to talk to me like that? Mm-hmm. Is there a reason you're being aggressive? Are you under the influence of drugs and alcohol? Why are you behaving this way? Like, just ask them the questions. Right. Like, everything they do to you, do you realize you can do to them?
Right.
Because we're all equal before and under the law. It's like, you're behaving weird. And instead of them now asking you questions, you're asking them questions. You're behaving weird. What's the reason for that? Is there a reason you're talking to me this way? Are you having a bad day? Are you even a police officer? Can I see your identification?
Have you seen the video of that one dude who is like walking around a police station? It's a video of an American guy, and he's doing it to be intentionally like agitating, but there's this undercover cop who comes up and is like, what are you doing? And the dude just keeps asking him the questions, and you can just tell in the energetic dynamics, the dude is taking a stance of I'm the superior one, and he's not doing it in a way where he's like, I'm a free man, but it's more so like, I ask the questions around here. He's asking this undercover cop, dude.
It's really good.
It is so funny.
So what happens?
It's so true. It's like, it's a perfect example of what actually goes on.
It is absolutely. But what you see is the guy, we'll call him an agent. He's acting in the capacity of an agent. He has a certain demeanor, a certain way that he's used to things going. So that's the creditor in that role. But the other guy's switching it now. He's not accepting that that's the reality. He's not accepting that that's how somebody acts. It's like, I'm questioning that. Why are you acting that way? Like, this is what we do. We need to break down the constructs in order to be free from that kind of slavery. So that's how I would handle people from the state. Just to quickly go back a little, when you were saying you get frustrated with people, like I've been there too, what I noticed is that in 2020 and that when people were all masked up and things, instead of judging people who are wearing masks, what I try to do is take a different approach. And I'm walking down the street, obviously, without a mask. And I could tell, you could see in a lot of people genuine fear.
Yeah.
Right. So rather than judge them like, you idiot, you sheep, you whatever, I would just always smile, mostly with my eyes, but also with my, smile at them to just like let them know everything's okay.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need my judgment. They don't need that. And so when I come across people who are like inherently disempowered, they're like, no, but the New World Order, no, but I still can't remember the CW, whatever they're called, all these bodies and whatever.
Yeah.
But they just put out a new thing and it's just every and I'm like, that's cool, man. Like it's all right. Like so that's my test, because as you're coming out of these roles and characters and stories in this game of life, it's like, all right, so what is this character here to show me? I'm not better than them. Like I can probably see a bit more than them and explain a bit more. I'm not better. So what are they here to show me? Why am I reacting? Why am I judging them as like, why am I frustrated with them? Mm-hmm. So I always saw people like that in my field, because I did come across a lot. I still do, I guess, in real life. And it's cool. Like it's just part of this story. And when I see it that way, I'm now rewriting that for myself. And now that not only do people like that not frustrate me, I have a lot more compassion. Mm-hmm. And just because of how I hold myself, they come around a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And they drop at least, not maybe all of it, but a level of the fear, a level of the disempowerment. I'm like, well, I just changed part of reality then. Like I helped to restructure the,
You were the strong, coherent field that overtakes and trains a weaker, incoherent field. Yeah.
Dude. But if I judge them and I'm like, oh, these idiots, I'm so frustrated, these morons, these whatever, as soon as I do that, I'm making it worse.
Yeah, so, and you're putting yourself in a diminished capacity to co-create.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, that's such an important reminder. One question going back to the how to approach agents of the state situation, do you think there's any validity or any situation where it would make sense that, let me contextualize this question. So it's one thing to know who you truly are, what you're acting in the capacity as. Am I acting in the capacity of this piece of paper? No. That's not truly me. I'm the man, and I'm maybe acting as the agent of, or you could say I'm acting as the CFO of, just like you said, of this entity who that individual thinks I am and is communicating with. Is there any legitimacy in the approach of reminding that agent of the state that they are a man, and if they infringe upon you, you will hold them liable as a man?
Yeah, there could be. I'll tell you, in Australia, no. In the United States, more so, yeah.
Yeah.
It really depends. So I actually have a course coming out on this just because there's so much in this. It's literally like teaching people how to use firearms or martial arts. It's like, it could be dangerous.
Yeah.
So I prefer to take people from like square one, but just, we'll just, for anyone listening to this as a conversation, like don't just take any of this and I'm going to do this today. So the first thing is I like to just see people as another man or woman in front of me. That's the first and foremost. Because if I'm
whether they realize it or not, whether they even realize the
exactly
difference.
Yeah. Because how I treat them matters a lot. Because here's what I've seen a lot of times. I've seen people who think they're right, know they're right, are right about who they are, who the state is and all that, and end up battered, bruised, with big fines to pay, in jail for a few days or a month or whatever, because they just didn't read the situation right. So the first thing is pick your battles. That's a natural law. Like really learn to pick your battles. And you could rattle off all of these different case laws, acts. You could rattle off who you are, a man or woman. You got to remember, if they're acting in the capacity of an entity, the non-living cannot see or hear the living. So if you're trying to act as a living man in front of a non-living entity that's trying to control your entity, they can't hear or see that. So you're kind of going up against the wrong individual.
Right.
In a courtroom, you can do that because they understand that. They're in that game. A police officer is kind of like, in the scheme of things, in the levels of like to the big boss, they're like, they're right down the bottom. So you're kind of having the wrong conversation at the wrong time with the wrong person. But does that mean you can't? No, it doesn't. But you have to pick your battles.
Yeah.
You have to read the situation. So the first thing is, this is another man or woman. First and foremost, I'm going to connect with them on that level, because people get into this hierarchical nature straight away. Like, I'm better than you, or I'm so disempowered because my heart's beating, which means that I see you above me. So I'm going to like go the other way and I'm going to be above you. You're not above me. And you're going to, even if you're not saying that, you start talking like that. And immediately you're in this force continuum. It's going to go bad. Like, you can't then bring in logic, or are you aware of the act of this? Or do you really see me as are you talking to me as an entity? You're not getting to that level of conversation because you're in this force continuum. So what I recommend people do is just, first of all, like, don't worry, it's another man or woman in front of you. And if you can talk to them like that, you're going to go better off. So that's where you start. And here's where, like, this lesson I can't stress I can't stress enough how important this is. Be okay with the situation, because while you're resisting it, it's going to go, you're already on a losing battle. What I mean by that is, an empowered individual, imagine you're the CFO of your own company, the richest guy in the world. Anyone can come and sit in that chair and give you any offer they want. I want you to invest in my vacuum cleaner business. I'll get back to you in a day. Or, no, not up my alley. Or, yeah, I'd love to. Like, that's the options that you have. Treat every situation like that. You're not in it yet. Like, let them come and give you their offer. And if you can sit here like the billionaire CEO, you're going to just like handle it so much better.
Yeah.
So what that means is, like, let them speak. Like, don't resist it straight away. They're like, so you're doing this, you're doing that. I'm going to have to do this to you. It's like, well, you're not, but let's start here. How are you today? Something like that. Like, never try to make friends with an agent because they're not your friend. But at the same time, don't be unfriendly with them.
Yeah.
So it's like this, it's a subtlety, like, yeah, you get what I'm saying, right?
Totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay, so treat them with respect, but not like they're above you and not like they're below you.
Yeah.
Until they give you a reason not to. Then it's like the things I've said to police officers and in court to magistrates would shock some people. They think you can't do that, but it's like, you can do that. It's how you approach it. It's how you say it. Like, I've been so firm with people and so like really putting people in their place, but it's because there's been a reason to do it. I didn't walk in guns blazing, like, you this, you that, I'm this. You don't do that. But you can really pull out like the sniper rifle when it's necessary, because it's like, you just did this. You just put yourself in this position. Let me make it really clear. And it's like, you can point your fingers at people. You can like really like look down the side at them. And it's like, you can pull the trigger too, but it's like, they put themselves in that position. You have to be able to let them do that.
Mm-hmm.
So give the opportunity for the energetics to play out. Now, a lot of people aren't at that stage.
Yeah.
So that's what I say, like, this is how it does work, but you have to get to the stage of being able to do that, which is knowing who you are first and foremost, a little bit of knowledge to help. Okay, so police have powers here and here, but not here and here, for example.
Yep.
Or if the state sends you a letter, what does it really mean? Who is that addressed to? What is my relationship to that entity? And all of that has to play out first. So just being in a good place, letting it play out, letting it show it what it is. So you're not like misjudging what the situation is. And then, do you need to be firm? Do you need to just walk away because it doesn't even apply to you at all? Like, I've walked away from police in the street. They're like, hey, what are you doing? It's like, no, thanks. Because, yeah, for a lot of reasons, but yeah.
No, dude, I love that though, because I can like totally picture you, especially with your like calm, very centered demeanor. Like, no, thanks, mate. I'm out.
Yeah, because it's like, to me, what they're like is if you're walking through a shopping center and somebody's like, hey, can I sell you this thing? Can I? And I was like, no, thanks.
Yeah.
You just keep walking.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's the same thing. But again, like, you have to know why.
Totally. One question I have too regarding this is like, you're saying accept the situation as it is, right?
Yeah.
And then once you fully accept what is, then you can know how to proceed, whether to accept the offer, decline the offer, renegotiate the offer, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
if there is legitimate fear coming up inside of you, do you think there's any value in simply naming that fear? Like even verbalizing like, hey, I'm a little bit fearful right now of this situation. I see you as an agent of the state, blah, 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 blah. And it brings up a little bit of fear in me. I just want to like make that be known before we continue this conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and also just to continue on from before. So once you've read the situation, once you've made some level of connection, and to the best of your ability, you can discern what's happening. You can bring up, are you talking to my agent or my entity? Are you an agent? Like suss out where they are with that sort of stuff. Because more and more, some police are becoming more aware of that. Even council officers, just your general civil servants are becoming more aware of this. You can have that conversation, but read the situation first. That's what you got to be okay with doing, is being relaxed enough to have more perception. Mm-hmm. Then you'll know how to handle it. In some situations, pick your battles. They don't know what you're talking about. You're going to make the situation worse. You're going to be an idiot in their eyes, a babbler, somebody who needs an injection of some sort.
They'll in many cases, if you start like babbling off, even if you're correct, you're naming like the appropriate code, statutes, whatever, they're going to immediately chalk you up as, oh, that's a sovereign citizen type. So this person is absolutely fucking crazy. No matter whether you understand like, oh, no, I'm not a sovereign citizen. That's an oxymoron, blah, blah, blah. Like you could argue with them forever. But the moment you start babbling that stuff off, making claims yourself rather than asking questions, they're going to paint you as someone who's crazy.
Yeah, and there's an enemy of the state act in many countries as well, and you can put yourself as an enemy of the state really quick, and that's not a good place to be. And the other thing is, be careful of the level of questions you're asking, because I guess I'll just quickly explain this. We'll go back to, because this is the nature of these questions. They can lead to so many tangents.
I know.
So just real quick, we've been speaking a lot about law and story and game, and let's look at how that applies to a situation like this with an officer of the state. So what happens is when you start being in your capacity of the officer, and it's got this like really ingrained resonance to it that matters a lot. Like we have, like, this is a policeman, and they feel that, like, where they are, they might be a weak, disempowered individual, but they get in that suit with that badge and that start saying those things in that way they've been trained. They're like the man now, like bigger than a normal man, right? And as you, as a normal man in society, as a citizen, however you like to see yourself, come up against that, you'll shrink in relation to that growth. So now you've got this David Goliath scenario, and that's a construct that's not real.
Yeah. So, but what you're saying is your preconceived idea of what is going to play out is fulfilling that story, and then he's stepping into that role.
It's magnifying it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
It's totally already there. Sense. It's already there in the field. They step into it, and because it's so well worn, it's easy to step into that.
Yeah.
I've got heaps of analogies for that, which we can get to later if it matters. But what happens now is that we've got this skewed dynamic. So there is a game that's now created, and you're in that game whether you like it or not. So now what happens is there's almost a narrative that is expected. And so this being that is embodying this character is now what we call a simulation. So it has a lot of power. It's like there's a lot of energy in it. There's a lot of, if you've got a power bar, it's like full.
Yeah.
And yours is gradually decreasing because of the nature of this game that you're in, this simulation. So now what happens is there is an expected, or if you consider it an electrical circuit, it's a well-worn loop. And it just goes, it's already on that loop. It's like even trying to get it out of that, it's like, it's like magnetized. It's like, I'm back into it.
Yeah.
Now, because it has lore and it's a game, and you learn the rules of the game, which is asking questions, I don't know, I'm not going to make a claim. So, but here's the thing, it's like, what's the quality of the question? So you might go, yeah, but do I have to? It's like, yeah, but aren't you an officer? And am I a name? Aren't I a man? And all this sort of stuff. It's like, those are valid questions and you're playing the game correctly, but they're low value questions. So it's not going to overcome the magnetism of what's already there. You have to take it to another level, which discombobulates that program, which then makes it like they now go whoosh, down to nothing and you go whoosh, up to full. And that's done by, first of all, who you are always comes from there, knowing how to put yourself into that game, and how that simulation plays out now is your law, not their law or not their program. So the way that works is you've got to ask better questions, which nullifies their game. So what most people do is the game's created and then they're like, okay, I've got to ask questions. But the question is, but do I have to? Under what authority? Who are you? Are you saying I'm this? And it just goes round and round and round in that game. So what you have to do is create a new game outside of that. So you have to up the ante with the questions. So it might be, if it's in a base level situation, it's like, okay, but am I under arrest or am I free to go? And then, so you're starting to create a new game. Their game, because it's a program, is to draw you out of that and back into this one.
Yep.
No, give me your ID, otherwise I'm going to place you under arrest. It's like, well, you know the law. The law is you can't be under, you don't have to give your name in that unless you're already under arrest.
Right.
So they don't work together. It's like, no. Am I under arrest now or am I free to go? You're asking way stronger questions. So gradually it's like this game of magnetism of like which one's going to give. And most people, because they're new to it, they give. As soon as a bigger threat comes, they're like, oh, and they shrink again. Their power goes down. So but that comes from who you are. And so as you get better at that, more comfortable with the situation, you read and discern better. It's like, oh, I see what you're doing. Like you're just playing that game. Like that's your character. I see beyond that. Like you're just this, like, but that's cool. Like I don't hate you or nothing. It's like, it's cool, man. But like, I get it. And so no, we're staying here. And so you're creating this whole other new game. Now the currency's flowing to this one. And then it gets to the stage where like, yeah, but and then and they start like mumbling and shit. And then it's like trying to throw another Hail Mary out there at the end to see if I can save the game at the end. But no, the buzzer's gone and they're off. And it's like, okay, good, see you later.
Yeah.
So that's how it really plays out. And when you can see it as a game like that, it's so much more effective, to the point where you started with that question about accepting the position that you find yourself in. So my first court appearance, which was, actually not my first court appearance, but my first like kind of like you could be in a lot of trouble court appearance, was when I learned about the licensing system, the straw man, everything to do with this. And in Australia, it's like worse than America as far as like, it's pretty heavily guarded, that thing.
Well, from my understanding, we were talking about this yesterday when we were at lunch. It's because in most Commonwealth countries, you guys have the corporate fictitious entity and then the land. Whereas we have the original nation-state governments of each individual state of the United States. I think at the time it was 36 on top of the land. And then on top of that, the fictitious corporation. So in America, there are so many different, again, speaking on the alternative law approaches path rather than understanding who and what you truly are. Like when it comes to the paperwork, there's so many different approaches. Whereas in most other countries, it's like, no, there's only like really one route that you can take to do anything.
It is, yeah. So America is the land of the free for a lot of reasons, and a lot of people like talk a lot of like, oh, America's going downhill, and it's like there's a lot of stuff like that for sure. Again, it's like, what are you seeing? What are you allowing yourself to see? Are you seeing what like you've released that app, for example, of connecting all these good people? Like, you know, like it doesn't matter who you think's good or whatever. Like I really love there's a lot of groups doing a lot of good stuff in America, because you have that opportunity. Like where there's the opportunity for things to go really, really downhill politically, financially, whatever, there's also the opportunity for things to go really, really well for the same reasons. So like America really, especially from an outsider's perspective, it is like if you want to be in a place on earth that you can potentially do the most, it's here. So in Australia though, it's pretty like, we got this like whole colony kind of mindset, like we're prisoners and shit, which isn't true, but it is true because people act in that capacity because of the mind virus they've been fed. But so anyway, I drove around without a driver's license. I went to the local library. I laminated my own driver license. I went on eBay. I ordered my own license plates to be printed off of eBay. I stuck those on my car, and I'm just driving around like I'm the man, and I'm this, because I kind of knew, but I didn't know. So I did that for 3 years though. I got around for 3 years. I had several conversations for like 20 minutes, half an hour by the roadside with police. Like, what are you doing? And I managed to like drive off several occasions, which most people wouldn't be able to do. I'm going to get to why. Eventually I get this guy who's like, what? Like, what? And he's just like, wasn't having any of it. He just goes, oh, you've been pulled over for this before? I go, yeah. And he goes, why have you still got the plates on the car? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm kind of naive. Like, I'm pretty honest. And so like my naivety can really catch people off the guard. They think I'm this guy who's this bad guy trying to lie, and I'm just telling the truth the whole time. They're like, what? Like, I'm like, no, the last guy didn't take the plates off my car. Because in Australia, if you're unregistered or for any reason the car's defective or not up to code or isn't licensed or registered here for whatever reason, they'll take the license plates off the car, probably impound the vehicle, and you have to find your own way home and whatever.
Wow.
And so I'm driving without a license, without registration, with fraudulent plates on the car. And some of the police, because of how I interacted with them, they didn't even take the plates off the car. Wow. And I drove off. And which we're going to get to why in a sec. But So this guy's just not having any of it. He goes, I think you're lying. Like the last guy surely would have taken the place off the car. I'm like, I don't know. You tell me. Like he didn't. And he thinks I'm lying. I'm like, I'm not fucking lying. Like, why am I? And so anyway, he gives me a notice to appear in court. And I'm like, good, because you're out of your jurisdiction. You don't have the jurisdiction to do this. I was mouthing off a bit then. He's like, but I do. Like he was looking at me like, but I do. Like, which technically is correct in the jurisdiction he was acting in. Anyhow, I go to court. So it's my first time being really, like I've been to court to minor stuff. This is like I'm up for criminal charges and whatever. And I get in there and I'm like, I'm going to rip this place apart. Like I've got that mentality, right? So the way it works in Australia at least is if you got to turn up to court at 9 a.m. when it opens, and you have to sit there while everyone who's represented, which is represented, which means it's not you, by a lawyer gets heard first. So I'm like watching the clock, just getting angrier and angrier. And this judge, who's a lady with short hair, which is like telling, never trust.
Immediately, like
you can see it.
Yes, dude. That's so funny.
So she's not even looking at anyone. No one exists to her, which once you understand the story, you're like, I get why. Yeah. They don't exist to her. Like she's not being a BITCH.
No, it's not an actual man or woman. It's an entity that she's dealing with, and all those people are acting in the capacity of that entity. So like that's what she's used to.
I didn't know this. I just think she's a bitch.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, the arrogance of this lady. She's not even looking at people. She's just judging them left, right, and center. Here's a fine here. You're going to prison for a month there. I'm taking this off you there. I'm like, who do you think you are? And I'm like, but now I know. I'm like, oh, you're just playing the game. And they were playing the game too. Yeah. But they accepted those offers. Their ignorance is no excuse to the law is a maxim. So anyway, hour goes by, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours. At this place, I'm just like, I was just gonna like let it rip, like for what I thought I knew, which was my ignorance and arrogance. Now, for whatever reason, God created whatever life, put me in that situation and made it so that it gets to lunchtime. And she's like, all right, we're going on break now. We'll get back at 2:00. And I'm like, 2:00? I'm like, you're taking my time here.
Yeah.
Like I'm just getting, so this is Byron Bay. So the courthouse is like 100 yards from the beach. Uh-huh. So I go take the food that I go down the beach. I'm like, start doing some qigong, get some sun. I'm like chilling out. And I just got some feeling. It was a message. It was a feeling. It was whatever. So I'm like, all right, I'm here now. Getting angry at it doesn't change it. Like I'm never going to stop the rain by complaining, like the song, you know? So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to have this experience. So when I walk in with like, I'm greeting the court clerks. Hey, how you doing today? Like that. I walk in and I'm just like, hold myself different. So the magistrate calls my name. Like I'm pretty aware of like the name and whatever, but I'm just gonna. So I just walk in and she just goes, "You Tom Barnett?" I go, "Yes, I am." And I'm like smiling. I'm like, she just starts asking me questions. She goes, "You're all charged with unlicensed driving, no plate, fraud, no insurance, none of this. Like 6 or 7 charges, right? It's like $5,000 criminal charges. The highest is this. You could go to jail for this and whatever." I'm like, "Yep, cool." Then she just goes, she goes, "Here's some pictures of the plates that you had." Now, there's a maxim of law that says the truth comes out of the mouths of 2 or more people. It comes from the Bible, which means that you need a second witness. That's just the maxim, right? Yep. So meaning that they can show me photos, but that's not the proof. So they show me the photos. They're trying to read off the rap sheet one by one. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, all of it. Like, I don't know that I have to incriminate myself for every single one of them. I'm just like, all of it. They're like, what are you doing? Show me the photos. Yeah, that's mine. They're just owning everything. But I'm here to have the experience because what I resolve myself with is I'm here to have this experience no matter what. I'm going to show up in my full capacity in this experience. Now, I didn't know what I was doing 100%, but when the judge said, "What have you got to say for yourself?" I just go, "Your Honor, I'm here to talk to your sense of like reason and justice." And she visibly went back in her chair. Now she's looking at me. She never looked at anyone else. She's looking at me. She's like hearing me out. I'm waffling on about left, right, and center. But it was how I presented myself, the confidence I had in that I'm not a bad person. I'm just doing this. This is why I had reasons for doing it. She goes, "Okay, unlicensed driving, no charge. Fraudulent plates, no charge, nothing. I'm going to fine you $100 for having no motor vehicle insurance, and then an extra $50. This was like $5,000 of fees. She dropped like 3 or 4 or 5 of the charges, hit me with 2 for like nothing, and then let me go. She goes, see you, Mr. Barnett. And I went, "All right, see you later," and just walked out. But what happened was I changed my state. I didn't resist the situation, and I went into the situation, even though I was wrong on so many levels, I hit the situation with the entirety of my being, and it changed the course. It changed the reality. It changed the matter. And I still wasn't happy because I'm like, no, that's an injustice. It should be nothing. But really, when you look back on it, I'm like, no, that's what I say to people, like, have the experience. As soon as you try to resist it, it gets stronger. As soon as you try to, in any way, shape, or form, think you're above it, you're missing the experience. You're going to have to meet that teacher again, one way or another. Like the pain teacher will show up, or the injustice teacher or whatever will show up until you learn the lesson. As soon as you learn the lesson, it transcends the teacher. You don't need that teacher anymore.
Yeah.
So since then, I never had to deal with the state the same way in that capacity.
You know what's there's so many pieces that are so incredible about that, but what's like really sticking out to me right now too is that like you're showing up in an authentic capacity. Like authenticity. You've probably heard that before, that like the highest frequency one can embody is not love, it's actually authenticity, and you're showing up in like a full authenticity right there. I think there's like something incredibly powerful about that, especially understanding that like strong coherent fields, that's why I love my logo, strong coherent fields overtake and train weaker and coherent fields, bring them into coherence. Like you're showing up in full authenticity that's emanating outward from the waters of your body, where it's like reconfiguring who you are physically into your field, which is then impacting and entraining the people around you. So then they're like, whoa, this is not what I'm typically dealing with at all whatsoever. And then they're meeting you at that. And then the results absolutely go in your favor. It makes so much sense. And like, it sort of goes to show you that a lot of the common law-esque language approaches that one can take that are prescriptive are only going to go so far, because before you just take someone else's, hey, here's exactly what you say in court, you have to first understand who you are and act authentically from that position, while taking in the context of some of the other things that you have learned from other people and sort of meshing those together in how you approach a situation like that. And I think that's like a perfect segue, and this was not intentional, into insourcing versus outsourcing. And there's so much, man, when you talk about insourcing versus outsourcing, like there's so much gravy there. There's so much, because it's more than just like understanding who you truly are and what ideologies you're buying into, that you're taking on an identity of, that are not truly who you are, but it also applies to outsourcing your own agency to individuals by, rallying behind some politician or some political party, or on the other side of that, pointing at some politician or some political party or someone who you might think is controlled up as the enemy. You're continually giving them your agency, your power, your co-creative capacity. This is like one of my favorite pieces of what you speak on. So that's what I want to jump into next, is insourcing versus outsourcing. Do you have anything to comment on with respect to the court case with what I just said there?
Yeah, one thing, just because it's relative to what you said, is that because I came from who I really felt myself to be in that moment, which is the authenticity, I transcended the judge. I then transcended the short hair, and I got to the woman. I got to the woman behind. So then the woman who has that nurturing capacity then came through from who she really is, past the short hair, past the glasses, past the I'm a judge. And then I felt in some way that she then that worked with the rules that she had to work with I can do a section 10 here, I can do a whatever. But then it's because I reached her. And I know I did, because she treated me like she didn't look at anyone else in that courtroom, but she was locked in with me. And
so cool,
and that's why, because it's like that, like your logo, like that's what I knew happened.
Yeah.
Now, I'll just really quick, because you brought it up. Now, had I gone in with just equity law, trust law, this, that, I could have got courts work different in Australia to America, but I could have got it to a stage where I could have got like an adjournment of some kind. I could have got it to a higher jurisdiction of court. But I'm like, my time's valuable. Like, do I want to be sitting is that my mission? Because a lot of people then identify with, I'm going to bring down the court system. And it's like, do you know how far that goes?
Right.
And in some cases you could get away with, but if you don't dot your I's and cross your T's all the way down, because a lot of people don't know how far that goes.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, I got this right, this act, this nullifies that one. I'm in this jurisdiction. I'm now federal. I'm now this. And it's like, I'm in a trust now. I'm doing trust now. The equity that governs the trust. Now I'm over here. And it's like, do you know there's another 18,000 miles down that road that you're not even aware of? So you don't dot one I or one T. They'll get you on a technicality, even though you're right up to that point. And it's like, you can be taken for right. Now, I'm not saying that that's wrong either. Like I have also in my time, because I've done a lot of different stuff, used trust law, used equity, used various things to not just get something out of my field, but also to extract a win where I've sued companies for X amount of dollars because I use equity and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it works. And yes, you can. But what I always tell people is, given the chance to go back and do that again, where I've gotten money out of the state in several different ways and from financial institutions, if I could go back and do those again, I wouldn't do it. And why wouldn't I do it? It's because I'm aware of what the real currencies are. Like that thousands of dollars I got off whatever, that's immaterial to me now because I actually gave up a lot in order to play in their game to get some of their sand out of their sandpit. And I'm like, what happened to mine? My gold is worth more than their sand. So now I wouldn't do it again. I've proved that I could. There's value in that because I can teach that to others. I've shown it to myself. I can show why I got the results. So you can take that and apply it to your life in the way it matters to you. But if you now just want to go after the banks or the police or the whatever, I'm like, I'm not teaching that because that's not where it's at. Same with self-enrichment. Like you can use a birth certificate trust to get yourself like some free whatever. But I just don't believe you're supposed to do that.
Man, that's why I'm over here smiling and nodding because I know various people who have discharged a variety of things that, like, you know, the whole discharging space on the surface is like, oh, that sounds fucking incredible. Like, why wouldn't I approach doing that, right? Like, rack up a credit card bill and then just discharge it. Incredible. Yep. But the more you go down that path, for some people I know who have gone down that path, you realize, oh, this is 18 months of work. And yes, I have all the codes, acts, statutes, UCC, all the things to back what I'm doing, and it is totally lawful. But this is 18 months, 24 months of my life that I'm doing this. And is the juice worth the squeeze? And you ask them for the one, like one of my friends was just successful with an Amex discharge, like American Express discharge, which took literally 2 years. And throughout the whole process, he's like, man, fuck this. Like I had to get a second office in my office just to do this type of shit. And I don't have time. He is a practitioner and has a lot of other stuff going on. And then on the back end of it, he's like 100% not worth it. Like not even close to being worth it. And I'm sure there's other ways to discharge debt that are much easier. But the point still stands. It's like, is that a solid use of your time knowing who and what you truly are?
Absolutely. Now, it's deeper than that too, because you can discharge things relatively quickly. But the reason that I've never been drawn to that is because I've always had a feeling and now I can explain the feeling. And this is it, is that that's all fictional debt stuff.
Yeah.
Right? It's all debt-based currency. It's debt-based everything. So it's like, well, I go into debt the minute I want to chase that because I'm trying to fill myself with materialism, chasing debt. Why do I want to go into the fictional world and chase that? Like those credits are made up out of thin air. Like, yeah, it's based on my birth weight and my this and that. Like I get how.
Based on future labor, all the things.
Future labor and all that, which doesn't exist yet. It's futures trading. It's like, it's the fictional world. So why do I want to chase that? Now what happens by going into debt is that first of all, my attention goes there. Attention's a big currency. Now my energy goes there because I'm like, all right, I want free shit in the world. So here's how I explain this is I say to you, I deserve or I want a free holiday. I want to get some Gucci loafers and that's what I want to get. So I'm going to get that. I'm going to discharge it because I can lawfully, legally, everything. There's nothing wrong with it. No one loses out. No one loses any money. They actually still make money because of my securitization, my signature, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now what I'm feeling, that's what I'm saying. But what I'm not saying is like, the underneath of the iceberg. And what I'm not saying is I can't produce that on my own. I do not have enough value to do that. I'm going to sneak my way through life. I'm going to find loopholes. Why would I need loopholes? Well, I can't just procure that by myself. So I'm going to cut myself off from my actual value and expression in the world that could give me the company that makes Gucci loafers in return for some free Gucci loafers through Amex, then I'm going to discharge that. That's what I'm not saying by what I'm actually saying. And that's where default agreements come into natural law. And it's so much more, there's so much power in that and disempowerment when we realize what it is that we're doing. It's like, yeah, I'm going to cheat the system and chase this and get all these payments off the government. I'm like, that's cool. You can do that. There's actually, and I've got to say, there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. And there's actually an expression that it's a crime to steal from your neighbor, but it's a duty to steal from the government. I love that. But at the same time, because I've been there, But at the same time, then I'm like, I was doing that because I had not found who I was.
Yeah.
And I was delaying finding who I was because I have an out. I have an easy thing. I can just discharge debt. I can borrow money. I can whatever. But there's like, but what's my expression? That's somebody else's game. I'm becoming a character in that game. Yeah, I'm being like a Robin Hood, but I'm still a character in their game. But then I'm like, what's my character? Who am I? So then, but what if I find that and now express into the world, like, who knows what I'm restricting myself or blocking myself from if I don't accept what the creator wants for me. I'm accepting something that I'm pilfering from the government, which is a minute, like, where's the currency?
Well, and it makes total sense too, because going back to what you said earlier about something that you've created versus something that someone else created that you're falling into. So then you are then falling into something that's fundamentally owned by them. And we could argue all day on like, okay, whether you truly own the birth certificate or not, like grantor, beneficiary relationship, who's actually the grantor and that blah, blah, like we could argue about that. But the point is that whole structure, the whole entire canvas is what they're painting on. You're falling into their painting by doing that. That's kind of what you're getting at, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And so just the summary of that is that those credits are there for a reason. They're meant to help you. So if you, for example, you can argue there's no accidents and blah, blah, blah. We're talking about the reality world that we share kind of thing. And let's say you damage my car because you're just like, for whatever reason, something happens. You have like a medical condition and you're not drunk, you're not belligerent. It just happens. You damage my car. Well, you can discharge the liability for that debt. And that's just because it helps everybody out. But then just going, well, I had a Toyota Camry, so now I'll get a Range Rover because I can wrangle this insurance thing. You can do that, but I just don't believe it's the right thing to do because now it's self-enrichment rather than just like discharging a liability.
Yeah.
So that's the big difference. And I don't judge anybody who goes out and writes off 30 grand of credit cards or gets free cars or gets whatever, like they can do that. That's cool. To me, knowing how natural laws work at a high level, I believe that that's getting yourself into a different form of debt, which I don't want to do. Like the Bible says, to stay out of mammon, like don't get into debt.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but you have to ask what's debt. People think debt is just credit cards and fictional reserve currency, but there's like, man, like you're taxed in so many ways if you're inherently like fixated on taxation and IRS and whatever. Like that's taxing to you. Like the word means more than you think. So like that stuff's all fictional, but where's the real gold? The real gold's inside of us. It's actually monoatomic gold, but that's our essence and that's what's loosed. That's why that's a whole other discussion, but that's the real currency. So you can hold on to that. You can grow that. That's your wealth, your inner kingdom. And while you're outsourcing and doing all the discharging and that, it's like, unfortunately, you are like, you're going into debt within that inner side. You're not totally increasing what really matters. You're getting a few cars, you're getting a few holidays, you feel good about yourself because you're discharging debt and you're cheating the system. Well, you're not even cheating the system.
No,
you're
not. Yeah.
You're using the system.
Yep.
Cool. That's cool. And that might be somebody's path, and I'll never say otherwise. But I know for me personally, that's not my path. Like I know I have more, and it takes more to find it. And yeah, you have to like give up or sacrifice more, like not have this and not have that and not take the easy road. But it's definitely worth it for me. I can only speak for me because I mean, every day I'm feeling more and more that kingdom internally is actually growing in wealth. And at some point that will turn into like the kind of external wealth no one can take away, because no one can take this away. But someone can take away cars or holidays, or I could get something wrong with discharging, or it could take 2 years and I'm drained. There's so many different factors to it, but the summary is just that to move into insourcing, outsourcing, which you said, is that if you can focus on that, that's insourcing. And then that's finding what real value you have, which then expresses into the world. And that can't be messed with. That's a whole other game, a whole other story, a whole other law to what it is that you're trying to resist or trying to figure out to like take something from. It's the same amount of energy, but now it's expressing from your uniqueness. So I did a stream recently talking about this where we affix value on stuff that's rare, like gold or silver, which isn't actually as rare as we're told. So with like oil and water, we think it's like, it's limited. It's like, no, it's not limited. Everything on earth is renewed. Mm-hmm. Everything renews. Everything is like created all the time. So it's literally a limitless realm. Yep. That's the thing. Like we're programmed again, it constructed the mind, scarcity, all the other stuff. We're destroying everything. We're not. There's like so much here in this realm. But the most unique thing is you as an individual. There's not another one like you, never will be, never has been. Even if you take away a continuum of time, it's like the most unique thing is your essence. There's nothing that's the same. So here's the thing, most people don't have it because they're operating from programs, illusions, constructs, egregores, all the other stuff, right? So they're not actually themselves, they're not living. That's why a lot of the talks that I do are called Whose Life Are You Living? Because most people aren't living from who they really are. So as we start to find that, you're coming into who you really are, which, because it's the most unique thing, isn't that then probably the most valuable thing? So then if that transcends its way through some of these illusions programs into the reality and then starts changing the coherence of the structure of things, like, wouldn't that also show up as value? Wouldn't that then turn into better relationships, a better passageway through the world that we share? Probably, possibly, more than likely, also material wealth as well, because people will value that. They want some of that. So they're going to want to give to you in order to receive under natural law in that way. So it's not just that, it's like it represents something different. So I could, with the knowledge that I have, probably within a week or two, have a Lamborghini through the discharge system, the state system, borrowing money and then stacking against this and whatever else, and ended up with a Lamborghini. But what creates that? What is that a representation of? That's far different from it being a representation of my value, like the true inherent substance, the real substance that's made its way, come back as that form that I enjoy in a different way than I would enjoy this. Same car, same possession, as in like I have it, but in what capacity do you own or possess that? In what way was that created? And these are the subtleties that, again, a lot of people aren't super keen on exploring because they're like, well, that's a lot of work, or I'd rather just have it this way.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of life, is you can.
Yeah.
It's just everyone's individual path. But this is when you start to get into the lore and the story. It's like, what is yours? Like, who were your ancestors? Like, why are you here? What are you here to do beyond raise a family, have a job, and try to support yourself or try to figure life out? What are you here to do? Like, we all have such... To me, it's both extremely humbling and extremely like, oh, geez, like, what am I supposed to do with that? When you realize that you're here in this timeline for an absolute reason and purpose. Like, it's no accident you're here now. And so if the world is the way it is, rather than judging it, like, accept it. Like, all right, I must have known in some capacity because I've contracted or agreed to be here. So I must have known. So rather than resist it and say it's all whatever, like, how do I go into that to do or be what I'm meant to do and be? Like, that's like, ooh, like, you got to really think about that or feel into that.
Totally. One question I have on that's coming up for me, and then I want to get into like buying into someone else's ideology and how do we approach existing and cohering, you could say, in groups of people without adopting someone else's ideology, because that's like a balance, right? Like you and I are homies. We're about to go to our event Confluence, and like there's going to be a lot of people who are totally resonating with what you and I are saying here. But how do you refrain from... I want to set that aside, because the first question I want to ask is completely different to that, but it's related to coming into this realm, right? And I completely agree with you that based on what I see in this realm and how everything is an offer, and the moment you said that, when I first saw you Living Free talking about how everything is an offer, like, just it is stuck with me in so many ways, dude, because it's contextualized what I've always thought. It's like verbalized what I could never really like explain well, right? But there's this idea that of like the archons controlling this realm, the reincarnation, soul trap, blah, 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 and you didn't actually choose to be here. Someone forced you to be here. What are your thoughts on that whole paradigm?
I'm not super aware of it. I have heard that expression before.
Yeah.
I like the way Steve Falconer talks about archons. He's like, that actually means light. It's not like these evil, like whatever. But I honestly feel that that's a learned helplessness.
Yeah.
I think that comes in where people become... So we might be in a temporal realm, but I do believe we're meant to transcend that to come more into our being.
Yeah.
Mind and being are two very different things. So we can quite easily then like... And I know this very well because this is how I grew up quite elitist. Because I felt so disempowered and whatever, I fixed into my mind. And because I do have fairly high intellect, I'm able to intellectualize things quite well and be good at academics and whatever. But then that's a massive trap. And I learned that, life showed me that, because I lost my health and my life force and everything. So that's in real time, I learned that. But So as you grow out of like the matrix, and then you start to get into, well, it's a program and it's a simulation and it's this, and then there's these archons controlling this, and then there's this off-world entities here, and then there's this, and then it's like, okay, but how do you really know that? Who's telling you that? Based on what? But it feels good to expand them, because that's an expansion of the mind. Like you tell that to a quote unquote normie, they're just going to be like, you're an idiot. You're a psychopath. You're a whatever. It's like, nah, bro, like I'm elite. Like you don't know that, so I'm better than you. So what I learned early on in life, thankfully, was that me wanting to be different means me wanting to be better than. Mm-hmm. Because I was ostracized and different from society, I never fit in. I had so much like angst and anger and all that, because we do actually just inherently need to fit in some way. Then the way I made myself feel better than that is by being different. So if you do something some way, I'm better in something. I'm different, therefore better. Like you eat like this, well, I eat like this. Mm-hmm. You know, you're going to have that kind of water. I have this kind of water. You know, so different means better than, but that's not real. That's not true either. So when people start going like, yeah, the archon's this and the that, and it's a soul trap, and it's like, that becomes an identity. That gives you a safety in an illusion of identity. Yeah. I belong to this. I prescribe to this. If we're this, that gives me reason. Like, I'm here to fight now. I'm part of the resistance, man. It's like, that could be true. It could. I'm not discounting that as a possibility. But I'm also suggesting that just based on natural law, okay, straight away you're identifying. You're finding safety or power or purpose or meaning through an identity, and that's immediately an illusion. Yeah. Now, the other side of it might be real, but the illusion is still an illusion. Mm-hmm. You have a different meaning, reason, and purpose than that, whether or not that's true. So now you can just like, well, it could be true, it could not be true. But there's definitely a learned helplessness in we're here in a soul trap. The earth is so toxic. There's so many sprays, so much EMF. There's no nutrients in the soil left anymore. There's 10 billion pounds of pesticides in the river systems every year. Like all of that is just, that's a learned helplessness. How do you feel as a being? So what really happens is, are we less vital because the world is like that? Or are we less vital because we believe the world is like that? And we're acting in the capacity of somebody who cannot extract enough nutrients from the soil. Like what's the reality? Like we make the reality. And this is the thing that people don't understand, is that the law, natural law, has almost zero to do with cops, governments, debts, fines, bank cards, and all that sort of stuff, and everything to do with our story and our creation in life.
Yeah. Man, I love that. When we were at Living Free and you were talking about, you're pointing up in the sky at the lines in the sky, and I'm going to butcher what you said, but it was essentially that, do you truly believe that you were created so weak and so helpless that those things in the sky will have such a significant effect on you that they will overcome the essence of who you truly are and overcome and empower and disempower you to that level? Something like that. But it was like, man, I had never really thought of it like that, because it was the whole paradigm of chemtrails was like the one thing that I couldn't really wrap my head around. Like, well, are we consenting to that? Like, that seems pretty forced, but irrespective of that or not, and I do think it's like based on tacit agreements where we all collectively agree to have those things done to us. Mm-hmm. You really believe you're that weak that your body can't overcome whatever's happening with that? That's
what it's really for. Like, we don't, that's an assumed thing that like, okay, you can measure barium, strontium, and aluminium now according to science, like that affects the neural pathways this way, this blocks that. It's like, might be true, it might not be true. There's always an element of truth in everything, but what's the whole story? So that's in reductionism. You're probably familiar with this. Like when I was learning about health and I started to question, even when I was learning about health, I'm like, but that's reductionist. Like vitamin C, it's like that. Yeah. It's like you can't take a part out of the whole and try to use the part to explain the whole. That's reductionism. So like I would always call out my university. This is when I was 20. I'd be like, but and then I was the bad student. But at some point I am, because I think I've made a mistake in the past of downplaying chemtrails and that with the way I've spoken about it, because I have like legitimately experienced changing the skies above me. I've seen the rings appear. I've seen clouds disperse. But then I made the error of suggesting to people that that's the reality. And then that cuts people off, I learned, from their ability to do that, because it's too far beyond, it sounds too fanciful. It's not acknowledging what is real to them. And so I believe I did a disservice to people by like proclaiming that to be what people can and should do. Mm-hmm. And I know that now, and which is why I've held back. At some point, I'm going to do like a workshop on chemtrails and what it really means. What is it an expression of? Because I do believe we've all consented. It's a tacit agreement. The way I explain it in basic terms is it's a symptom. So, for example, if we have fungal and parasite infections in inverted commas, as you would talk about, that's just an overgrowth. It's not an infection, and it's there for a reason. It's there because we're not doing things ourselves. So if they're there to help us and serve us, or we need or deserve them, then why wouldn't we need or deserve the political state that we have, the skies that we have, and everything else that we have? Like, if you can see it as a symptom, you have control, you have power, you have the ability to change that. If you outsource and you see it as something happening to you, or something that is like in some way an enemy or an evil or a force beyond you, outside of you, well, good luck changing that. Good luck having any kind of sense of level. See, natural law to me just levels the playing field.
Yeah.
So good luck leveling the playing field if that's how you perceive yourself in relation to those things. The other example, you did, by the way, say it how I would have said it. But the other thing was that there was clouds. It was very cloudy on that day. It was meant to be super hot, and I had a sweater on. Well, a thin one, and because I wanted to look good on stage. And I was like, it appears that the sun's not there. But the sun is there, like because there's this whole agenda. Part of it is like they're going to block out the sun.
Yeah.
And even now, because Summer showed me that her friend had sent her this UK article about them disclosing now. There's public disclosure about geoengineering and chemtrails, but it's for this reason. So it's just always just skewing the consciousness to a certain place to block out the sun, which Mr. Burns wanted to do in like the 90s or in The Simpsons.
It's
remember?
Interesting,
We're gonna
right?
block out the sun.
Right.
But here's the question then is, well, it's not before we get to the question, we're going to land with the agreement is that the sun will be blocked out. There's an offer that they want to block out the sun. Now, we affirm they are going to block out the sun. Whether that's possible or not even asking what the sun is or where it is, we just take that and we form conscious or unconscious, whatever way, tacit agreements that they, quote unquote, who's they anyway, will block out the sun. It's like, cool, there it goes. It is gone. From now, in real time, you are now not connected to that source of light because you disconnected yourself. That's the thing. That's what we say in natural law is nothing can be taken from you, but you can give it away.
Yeah.
That's why everything's an offer. That's outsourcing versus insourcing, because the reality is that sun, even though it's hidden by clouds, is still there. Now, the other thing is that we don't actually perceive the sun. We perceive the sun rather than it being there, like the way optics work. It's not really a physical connection.
Mm-hmm.
So also, if you can imagine something, the body or the mind doesn't know the difference between what's imagined, what's real. Like they've done this in the studies with the basketball players, like rehearsing in the mind versus rehearsing on the court. It's the same thing. We don't know the difference between imagined and quote unquote real. So if we lose the imagination, if we lose the ability to just feel the sun, like what does the sun feel like? Where would it be in the sky? What does it look like? What does it feel like on my skin? What does it feel like to be in the presence of the sun? If we lose that, we've already lost it.
Yeah.
And
that's what we're doing right now. Not we, but a lot of people are doing by then accepting this, that's what's going to happen. They're like helping to co-create that experience for themselves with respect to the sun, because they are then doing all those things that you just said with respect to thinking about, okay, what is it going to be like without the sun? What is it going to be like when they do this? What is it going to do to the crops? Like they're helping to put that experience into reality.
Yeah. Now let's just quickly go there, because people will then go, okay, but you can't say that plants don't photosynthesize based on the sun. Or my solar panels, like if it's cloudy for 5 days, I don't have the power. Like you can't imagine that power in there and it's going to charge my solar panels like my off-grid property. You can't imagine that. And then the plants are going to photosynthesize different. And it's like, that's true. That is true. But what you're already doing is forming that idea of reality. It's informing. It's forming in your mind that matters, that becomes matter. So whether or not that's real, that you got to understand that's a fluid medium. Real is a fluid medium. Real is also like, I don't know how far you want to go with this kind of discussion, but like there's more than one sun, first of all, and there's suns in us. There's also allegedly, we'll just say allegedly, underground cities and that where there's other suns. Like how many are there? Like what does it even mean? If people can live underground, like what's photosynthesizing their stuff? Like do we even need that? Do we need, like we are bound so heavily by the construct of our idea of reality that is what we experience. So if we go outside of that without accepting that we are more, we can be more, we're just always going to be, we will experience dis-ease then when that doesn't match up. But is that created on us, or do we create that? So it's like, I'm not suggesting that, like, hey, look, we're just like supermen and women, like who cares if they block out the sun, and who cares? That's like arrogance and ignorance.
Yeah.
And that can be very painful. You can experience a lot of loss by having that kind of state of being. And I'm not suggesting that's the case. Like, but when you accept the responsibility, because with power comes responsibility. If you accept the responsibility, you do actually gain more power. But it's not I'm a powerful dude and I'll just like get rid of the chemtrails with my thoughts or whatever. It's like, no, you do develop a lot of power. It's different from that.
Yeah.
And if you believe that that's what power is, you won't be given the power by God or life because you don't know what to do with it. You won't handle it. You'll misuse it, and so it's like, you understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
right?
I totally get what you're talking about. Like also what comes up for me when you are accepting the reality as is, I'll give you an example. I previously thought, okay, as I was coming to learn about breatharians, for example, I was like, okay, they're getting all of their life force energy from the sun. That must be what it is. But then you have these experiences where people will go into a cave for some crazy amount of days, or that one guy, I forget his name. I mentioned him on episode, I think 142 with Mike Cardamone. This guy who was in a hospital being studied as a breatharian. He wasn't exposed to the sun. Or people who do darkroom meditation retreats for some crazy amount of days that aren't exposed to the sun, and they're also not eating. So they're cultivating some other form of life force energy. And it just really begs the question, like, how much of this reality are we truly co-creating based on our preconceived ideas of what is? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it's like, yeah, it's just crazy to think about it like that.
It is. And actually, I forget Valentina's last name, which I feel bad about, but she's a Russian author, and I've interviewed her twice. I was doing a podcast with her, and we were talking about grounding, and she said, yeah, but it's not just grounding. Like, yes, we're electrical beings, and yes, we should ground in the earth, the trees, or whatever, but you can also ground into your ancestry. You can ground into so many other things that will also discharge your electrical energy that needs to. I'm like, whoa, that blew my mind. I'm like, yeah. Like, I know that to be true, and that is just a segue to what you were talking about there, where, there's so many other ways to gain currency or energy. Like, food is one vessel. Light is a vessel. Well, what other vessels are there? So we can extract from so many different ways. We can discharge in so many different ways. So, because that's a learned helplessness, and which I know personally because I've been like that, because I came through the whole holistic health world, right? So I'm like, if I go a whole day without grounding, I'm going to be built up in charge. Now, part of that's true, but part of it is me holding that charge because I'm not discharging it through my ability to feel into other ways to discharge. So, okay, I can discharge into my ancestry. I can imagine, I can feel the sun. I can connect to the sun in a different way than having to sun gaze. So it's like growing up from being a child into an adult, or a different type of being that can experience these different, like, what is the sun? What is the construct or context of a sun? Are there different forms of that? Can I connect into that? Then do I need to be out in the sun all day? Mm-hmm. They're totally different things, but they end up in the same place. Totally. And this is where people, they shut their minds off to potentials. So then they do stay in the temporal realm. They never transcend the temporal realm, and that governs, rules, and controls them, slaves to the mind.
I wonder how much of this agenda of them basically admitting the whole geoengineering thing and outwardly expressing that they're going to block out the sun is really just them seeding that idea amongst us, understanding that, and this is getting kind of conspiratorial, and assuming that they truly understand the mechanics and the energetics of this realm. And I think that they do. I don't know for sure, but that they understand that by us believing it, we will actually create the conditions for it, rather than actually having the technology to do anything of those sorts.
So you kind of asked a real open-ended question there, which is like your thought process.
Yeah.
And I'm the same place with you as that thought process. But I tell you what, I've got like a model that I've put together It came first of all with people using words, but now I've realized that it applies to so many different things, and it's also in the rule of 3, which is a natural law principle. So I've come up with 3 stages of people becoming aware. The first is being like totally unaware. So you're a minor battery for the system, as in you don't have agency, so you are giving stuff away to the offers that you don't even know are offers. And the second stage is where you become aware of stuff and you're the most disempowered. You're the biggest battery for the system because now you're resisting everything and you're disempowered by everything. The first way I came up with this was when people started talking about words. It's like, you don't say understand, never say good morning. It means you're mourning. You're going to lower your resonance. And it's like, yeah, technically, but that's an offer, right? So like I can say good morning to you and I mean it with my heart and my soul, and it's a high vibration. So the words are transmitting utility. What are we imbuing that with? If we start imbuing it with all that negativity, well, you lost. It was an offer that people want to extract from you based on the meaning that it doesn't have inherent meaning. It doesn't. It's given. Then it's collectively agreed, which is tacit. But where in that agreement or contract can you not renegotiate? So then stage 3 is when you're the magi of words. Like, words mean nothing, but what you imbue the word with means everything. And it can be positive. You can cast positive spells. Like, forget being disempowered by spells and spelling and witchcraft and wizards. It's like, be one. Like, we're all equal before and under the law. Like, why don't you give that word a better meaning and mean it when you say it and deliver it in a way that changes the frequency and the realm that you're in? Because you have the power to do that. The resistance to that just means that you're not, like, that's just showing you where you're at. And that's okay, but you can build on that. So it's the same with anything, right? So like, I do believe that that is put into the collective consciousness. We as the collective create that reality of whatever it is. But I don't think people are aware yet in many cases that there are these, mine's just a model. You can have it any way you want to explain it, but unaware, aware and disempowered, and being more of a battery to that system, creating more of that effect than either side. Then the magi side is just like, look, we this could be anything. Like, that's not a foregone conclusion. That's not a reality. We would make it that reality if we forget who we are and just give our currency to that to create that. But hey, look, we could create something else. Now that's scary for people because they're like, create what? Create how? Create with what? What is it supposed to look like? I don't know. And that's cool. Like that's normal for people. Like, it's the unknown.
Dude, that middle, I love that framework, by the way, because that middle group, what was it? It was the one who's aware but is disempowered, right? Isn't that what you described as? That's exactly what I say with respect to, like, whether you realize it or not, you have a co-creative capacity. And I would say that some people have an increased co-creative capacity relative to others. But what I brought up, I forget what episode this was on. Reese, maybe you could remind me. I was sitting here with someone. I'm like, do you think it's possible that the people who have woken up to what's going on in the world actually have a much better capacity to co-create than so-called normies, because they're more than likely doing more of the things to make themselves a clear vessel, right? They're not eating a bunch of toxic foods and things like this, but because they're still in an incredibly disempowered state, they're helping to co-create more of that experience because they're constantly outsourcing and focusing on paying attention to, which is currency, as you say, those negative possible scenarios. They're actually much more harmful than those who are totally asleep to what's going on.
Yep, definitely. But it's also okay. So I liken it to, like, as we're waking up, it's like growing up. So like, if we're still kids in a lot of respects, it's cool. Like, you're not going to get angry at a 6-year-old for having an outburst at the same, like, as in that's in a 40-year-old body.
Yeah.
So if you treat it like the kid, it's like, look, it's cool. Like, here's how you can grow. Here's how you can learn. Here's some compassion. Here's some growth. So like, it's okay. But it is like that. Like, when we had the floods, we've had a number of different, like, weather events back home in Australia, and we had these floods that were very, very heavily engineered. Even the mainstream media called them rain bombs in that particular dialect and language. Rain bombs. It's like a warfare.
Wow.
But what happened was, a couple of months prior, everyone went down to the capital of Australia, which is Canberra, which is like your Washington DC, where the political, our White House kind of thing is.
Yeah.
And so people were all going there en masse. They were trying to get millions of people there to protest against all the lockdowns and that in Australia. And all the main influencers in Australia, like, everyone's got to get there. And I'm like, probably not a good idea. And in my way of communicating wasn't the best, because I was obviously righteous, putting people down a little, mocking a little, not the best way to communicate an effective message, which I know that. But back at the time, like I was still angry at certain things in the world, the way, people weren't getting certain messages. But
I come in and out of that too. And that's why I still experience a lot of frustration towards people who are like aware of what's going on, but only focused on the negative possible scenarios and what quote they are doing. I'm still coming in and out of
I'm
that
not
too,
now.
man.
Like, I don't know about you. So I'm not now. I don't know if this is going to resonate with you, but the reason that I'm not now is that I've actually found what my place is, which I was resisting because I never wanted to be like, I'm not like, I now just realize I've accepted myself as a teacher of this sort of stuff. So now because I'm a teacher, my job is just to teach. It doesn't matter what other people do. So now I have a great peace with what other people do or don't do. And now I can deliver messages much more calmly without the judgment, the sarcasm, the humor. That I still like humor. I love making jokes and stuff, but just without the need for sarcasm or whatever.
Totally.
But so what happened was I was like, guys, you got to be real careful. I did like 10 streams. I remember the Canadian ones, trucker rallies were going on around the same time. So you like just put two and two together, guys. Like this is a little bit like who started this, why you had these particular personalities calling everyone to bring certain flags and that to them. Like, guys, this reeks of something weird. Like,
but real quick, even if the intentions were good and it was started by a genuine grassroots thing, the energetics of getting 2 million people, speaking to the Canadian trucker rally, I think that's how many people were there or involved in some capacity, to say, you have power over me and we don't like it.
100%. You just summarized the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, so what I was saying is a few things. There's a few messages. One, those who are switched on enough to be realizing they have more to do in this world than just work, pay taxes and die, you are leaving the one place you are actually affecting a capacity as electrical capacity on the land that you're in to go to another place that's not your place and to just piss and moan about something to affirm your own disempowerment. That's what's happening. The second thing is if you look at Parliament House in Australia, it's like, I'm just looking at it, I'm like, you realize that's a Masonic grid. Like that is for all the geometry. Then when you look at the marble, the sandstone, the granite, the spires, it's like that is an energy harvesting center. You got to realize that. Now under Canberra is like man-made, very whatever the word is for like ornate, whatever, waterways. So a lot of water is controlled. Canberra's elevated, then it goes down to places like Sydney and Melbourne.
Wow,
so I'm like,
already.
guys, you got to be careful with the water. You're on a battery grid. You got to be careful with what you're doing with the waters. You guys don't know what you're doing down there. Be really careful. Like, don't go in with disempowerment. Don't do this. A couple of months later, I'm like, okay, my knowledge of water, it's memory, can store energy. It can be used as a battery. Now with the types of frequency devices they have, they can then just put that where they want it. So then they put it on the northern rivers and then into Sydney, and they dropped rain bombs, which was, so this is what I mean. Like people are right to have, like, be aware of that. Like, look at the radars, look at like, it's clearly an engineered thing, like the Maui fires, California fires, like the different floods and fires that happen, like the hurricanes. It is engineered, but how? But why? Like, what role do we have? How can we not only prevent that, but change that? Because we have the ability, like I'll tell that story soon if you want to hear it, but seeing it just to be disempowered by it feeds that system.
Yeah.
And until you're willing to grow out of that, which is a childlike state, like, but mommy, but daddy, but this, it's not fair, and I don't want to go to my room, and that's not fair, and I want cookies and that. It's like, that's what people are doing.
Yes.
And I got a lot of like hate for that because I said, you guys killed people with that. I shouldn't have said that, but I did.
Right.
I was like, you guys, you thought you were doing the right thing. You think it's like nothing's going to change. It's all scripted as to when those lockdowns are going to be taken away anyway. And you're taken away from the one place you can make a real difference. And I get it. You don't know how. So you do what you think, which is an illusion, because it feels like you're doing something, but you're not. The same way people think it feels like I'm changing if I go from eating junk food to being a raw vegan breatharian thing. It's like, you're not. That part of you that's disempowered just put on a different mask and now it looks like that. So it's like that with people growing up in the world. And so I've got a lot more patience and compassion for people now. So now when I just teach, I'm like, okay, that's cool. But if you want to do something different, here are the steps. If you don't want it, that's cool. So now I don't have the polarity with needing to mock or be sarcastic with people. But that did create that rain bomb and that. So
luckily, I'm not in a position where like I mock necessarily. Maybe some of my language can sometimes come across as a little like frustrated. And I think that's where it sits. It's like the frustration because I see so many people who are ostensibly on the same page as me, who I'm like, God damn, like based on what I've seen kids fucking read blindfolded, multiple kids in person, witnessed it myself. You're going to witness it this weekend at Confluence. Like we know people who have demonstrated over and over again that water is programmable. Water, it permeates all facets of this reality. So you can put the pieces together. Like we have Eileen McCusick teaching us that strong coherent field overtakes and trains weaker incoherent field. So like if you truly understand who and what you are, all this political noise and nonsense, whether lockdowns are coming or not, who cares? It doesn't fucking matter anymore when you understand who you truly are. Like I always give this example. When it came to the whole charade of 2020 happening, right? If even just 1%, 2%, 3% of just the people who were like, oh, I see something is wrong with this, truly understood who they are, or we're on the path, because I don't know if any of us truly understand who we are, but we're on the path of remembering who we are, and we're acting from that place, none of it would have happened. I'm convinced, or at least for those people. And I mean, you saw it though, for a lot of us, like, yeah, maybe we, at some points in time, because we're navigating and we're co-creating with other people and there's overlapping elements of that. And you're having to live in community with people amongst society, interface with society. But for many of us who are like, no, this is not real, nothing new happened for us. And it reflected in our reality. And now imagine if there were 100, 1,000, 10,000 people in one area doing that exact same thing, creating that point of concentric rings of strong coherent fields overlapping with each other. It just wipes out any possibility of any of that other stuff taking place. It doesn't even fucking matter anymore. It doesn't matter who's in office, who's head of HHS. Like, I'm not saying some possible good things can't come of that, but they won't be lasting because they can be reversed by another administration that comes back. So why are we putting all of our energy, all of our attention, all of our focus in that basket? Because it's not going to create lasting positive change. The only thing that can create lasting positive change is coming from the inward side of things and expressing outward, impacting your family, impacting your community. That's the only way it can happen. And that's why I think I get so frustrated, is because I've seen that with my literal own two eyes. Like, I always go back to the blindfolded reading example, but it's so telling, like, God dang, this is how powerful we are.
Yeah.
Like, and you speak to any of the parents of the kids who can do that, they say, all of us have the capacity to do this. Every single one of us. Like, yeah, like some people have a higher capacity to jump higher than other people, but nonetheless, you have the capacity to do it.
Yes.
Like, that is what I want to focus on. And I feel like I'm towing the line of like, hey, people, here's where Trump is clearly misleading you, not as a means like, oh, we're all fucked, but like, hey, that's not the right way. This, you here, this is the right way. Point to your fucking chest. That's where it is. That's where the true source of power is. Not this. That's an illusion. And that's why I think like I still come with a little bit of frustration, because I'm like, they almost got it. They're right there. But in fact, because they don't fully get it, they're actually feeding more of that same thing that they think or claim that they don't want.
Yep, absolutely. And just because we started talking about this with the example of the UK putting out the disclosure that they're modifying the weather for that particular purpose, and whether or not people playing into it. So what people, I think, don't realize is how elaborate and genius that side of, you know, the energetics that are on Earth is, like, really good at spellcraft like that.
Yeah.
So where you think something happens and it's based on this, they're disclosing that, it's like, you don't know how far back that goes and how far forward that is planned based on your inability to know yourself. Like, so the Chinese are really good at this sort of stuff. In Australia, they've actually bought up a lot of the land in Australia. It's almost like communist China in Australia. But that is because the way that the Chinese are programmed is that they forget the I and they go to the we and the all. Now, it's not in a benevolent side. It's in a like very agenda-driven side. But
still learn from it though.
Australians aren't willing to go a day without a meat pie, a beer, and the football, but they're willing to go 3,000 years to see an agenda through. Mm-hmm. So their role is to fit this part of the agenda to get this next stage into place. And so that's like planting the fruit tree that you will never bear the fruit of, but your grandchildren will eat the fruit, and you are dedicated to that. Whereas a lot of people are like, man, if that doesn't bear fruit tomorrow, what's the point of planting that tree? So therefore, because you have a weak coherence in your own agenda or your lack of an agenda, it will give way naturally to the stronger agenda that has more patience, more resilience, and inherently more power. Yeah. So people don't realize that. They're like, well, they're disclosing that. It's like, bro, that's been going on for 50 years, probably hundreds of years, probably before other resets. It's like, it's also got thousands of years. Like you're seeing, same with Israel, Palestine and whatever. You're seeing the arc of a story that's thousands of years old and you're fixating on this thing. You go, but then it's this. It's like, but you don't understand what that is. So that's why you feel the way you do. That's why no matter how much money you raise and give to people, no much how you bleed your heart and change your profile photo in a we support, whatever, it's like, not only are you not going to change it, you're making it worse. You're feeding that particular narrative that exists in this realm. The only way you'll be able to change that, if indeed you do want to change it or can change it, is to come into who you are. Activate your character in this world, be the best you can at that, even if it has nothing ostensibly to do with that. That's the only way that will change, because you are actually affecting the realm in the way you're here to affect it. But we don't. We want to do what feels like it does that. Like, but if I pay money to people, it'll change it. It's like, I want to feel like I'm a good person. I want to feel like, because what you're really doing is saying, I'm that disempowered. That's what you're saying by not saying. That's what I mean about default agreements. So yeah, with that whole thing about the disclosure, it's like, don't worry about that. Like, that is there, yes, but you don't know the spellcraft of that. Like, get better at spells yourself. Like, that's why, Hollywood is so invested in film, music, color grading, this, that, like all the elements that make the mind a certain way or the heart feel a certain way. It's like, man. So like Bambi's a great example I always like to give is, like the way that kids are traumatized. Even adults probably cry if they see.
Dude, if I watch Bambi and watch the fucking mom get killed right in front of the kid,
right away.
Shit.
Like, so that's, to me, what that's doing is that's showing there's like, guys, this is what our offer is to you. This is what we do through the way kids are birthed, to getting disconnected from the mother, to then going to like the system like this, to like, this is what we're doing. And this is the reason it's, and then here's, watch this movie. Let's compound it. Like, this is like, know this narrative, know who you are, but they're telling you you're this, right? So what I like to say is like, but okay, can you, without watching it, when it's not in your immediate vicinity, can you reimagine that? Can you imagine Bambi and her mother? I don't know if Bambi's a girl, but it's like, is she a girl?
I don't know. Is Bambi a girl, Reese?
Boy.
Okay. Boy.
Let's just say Bambi and Bambi's mother are just having like this epic loving relationship, and she licks him or Bambi, and then it's like, and then they just like eat an apple, and then they just run off into the sunset. Can I imagine that? And I can. How's that make me feel? It's like, can you reimagine? Can you rewrite that? Like, what's your law? Then the next level above that is, can you watch Bambi and see it for what it is, and then just go, no, but this is happening instead. Can you choose your own adventure? Because otherwise you will be a character in somebody else's play. Like, that's the analogy for it. But if we forget who we are, we don't remember our imaginative power and our ability to create, well, we are always going to accept another's version of reality that's not ours. Mm-hmm. And so we're like fixated on the agendas and that, but it's like, man, there's just so much more to life. And the problem, which I have to say, because it's a real problem, is where people think, well, I've hinted at it before, people just don't know what to create or how to create.
Yeah.
So then they're like, fall immediately back into line of working for somebody else as opposed to being an entrepreneur, for example. Like, we all have the capacity, like to jump, but some people can jump higher than others, right? Like you said, perfect way to say it. But now the other element is this, it's like, but I see people disconnecting from reality. They don't watch the news, they don't whatever, and now they think they're this fairy whale god motherland thing. I've changed my name to SpongeBob Whale Pants. And it's like, you can see like that, okay, they're disconnecting from not just the reality, but now they're living in some void of no man's land. Yes. And they're just completely disconnected from life. So that's what people see. That's why people are afraid to take the leap, because they see a dichotomy. They see controlled individual in society, and then SpongeBob Whale Pants over here, who's just thinks he's a shaman now. And it's like, though neither of those are right, but I don't see an example of the coherent glass of water or whatever so I don't see it. So therefore I'm going to resist that, because that's definitely not it as well. They're not seeing where people are actually, because you can't see what's inside another either. That's one of the issues. It's like seeing is believing, or but is believing seeing and all that. Like, people get confused. They're like, I need to see it as a reality. I need to see you change your thought, and then I need to see those clouds disappear, and then I need to see that politician die, and then I need to see that happen, and then I'll believe it, and then I'll change how I see the world. And it's like, life doesn't work like that. You need to leap, and then the net will appear. Like, you have to find that faith in your connection to what put you here. It can't come through you. It can't come from me. It can't come from anyone or anything else. Outsourcing versus insourcing. Once you're willing to insource, then that's when these things show up. Until you're willing and you're resisting insourcing, it's just not going to show up for you. There might be clues. Yeah, it looks like it could, but it might, but you still lack faith. You still you're in fear. You've got too much fear in there to be able to accept that role and responsibility of being that. And here's the other side of that. So when you're on the other side of that, you do have to be okay with people thinking you've lost the plot. You were a truther. You were for us. Now you're just this weird guy who's whatever. You got to be okay with that. You got to be okay with, like, from what I did, like I left my last thing and I'm like, people are making me out to be something they need or want me to be. Like, I'm not giving my currency to them anymore. That's like, it's got nothing to do with money. Like my currency, like, that's not me.
Yep.
So I have to be willing to go, okay, that's also providing like other like fiat currency and whatever. I have to be willing to step into my role in life, which is not that. My role is to teach something and it's to teach something different. So I have to be able to forego that and then just go, but what if nobody else supports me? But what if? So that fear creeps in, right? But then I have to connect and I have to go, no, that's not my role. I know it. It's like, I can't see it necessarily, but I know it. So I have to step into it. And then I do it. And then all of a sudden it's like, this is working really well. It's like, now I'm fulfilling that role. This character in this play is, at this point in time, it will change later in life. At this point, it's to be a teacher. Nothing more, nothing less. The humility of just being a teacher, not an influencer or a personality. Because that's what I was doing when I was doing the whole Canberra stuff.
Yeah.
This is 3 years ago. The reason I was still like sarcastic and mocking and just getting like having rants on live streams, even though like I look back on it and some of it is genuinely funny. Like I still look back at it and go, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it was because I didn't have a role. I wasn't seen as, or I didn't see myself as a teacher, which is to teach principles of natural law. So because I was what other people wanted me to be, I'm like, I'm filling a role that's not mine. I'm supposed to speak out about things. I'm supposed to point fingers at the viruses, at the New World Order, the agenda. But I'm like, I always knew, I'm like, it's not me though. Like that's not my role. That's not what I'm really here to do. So I would get online and I just rant and stuff because I'm like, at least I'm just, but I didn't know what I was angry at. And I'm like, oh, I know what it is now.
What is it?
Well, that's what it was. I wasn't being me.
Yeah.
I was fulfilling because real quick, I was a filmmaker. I was a holistic health practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I left that was not because I wasn't good. I was really good at it. Was that I was seeing people who had no idea of what they were doing make an ebook and make $1 million off it with no clue of what they were doing. This is rehashing what Ray Peat said 20 years ago, or what Ogenus Vonderplant said, or what Paul Check. And I'm like, you guys you don't even know what you're talking about. I'm like, right. I've been like busting my ass as a PT and then as a practitioner, working for like $60 an hour. You just go online, you're good looking, you can say something, and you got like 1 million followers and you just made $3 million of an. You're like, oh, fuck this, I'm out. Like, and I was comparing myself. I'm like, I didn't realize that's their role. And I should be happy for that. Like, awesome. Like, that's their role in life. That's awesome. That's not my role in life. I stick to my role, stick to my lane. And then if it's what my lane is, my lane will have what I need.
Mm-hmm.
But I was comparing. I was outsourcing. I was doing I'm making all the mistakes. So I actually threw the towel in of holistic. I'm like, fuck this. If people don't want to like know what's up, they want to think that that's real. I'm like, you can have it. So I dropped out of it and I got into film and photography. So like I was just saying to Reese, like I was doing her job. I was actually producing Zionists podcasts talking about global warming and climate change and that.
Holy
sitting there like with the gain knob just going, should I just freaking turn this down a little? Because like,
I didn't know that. Holy shit.
Yeah, so then I'm like, but I resigned myself to that because I never had any mentors in that. So I'm like, I'm frustrated with the world. I'm not participating in the world by my own choice. I'm like, people aren't going to see me for what I am. But the reality is I wasn't giving the world what I am. So how were people to see it? Like, you know what I mean? So I was hiding my light under a bushel, so to speak. I was hiding myself.
Yeah.
I was the enemy. So then 2020 rolls around and I'm like, there's no way everyone thinks this is real, right? Like I've been to the whole virus thing and that for 20 years. Like I know this shit. That's how I got out of being, when I was in chronic fatigue, I had like, all the viruses and that.
Yeah, but everyone said you had Epstein-Barr virus.
Yeah, and immunosuppressed and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, that shit's not real. Like, surely people know you can't catch this stuff, right? Like,
which is a really important point, by the way. Like, don't lose your train of thought. This is just another of many examples for the people who say, oh, the no virus thing is a new psyop that came about in 2020. There's so many examples where that's not true. Not true.
It's old stuff.
Old stuff. Exactly. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so I made that video in April of 2020. It was actually April 1st I released it. Didn't know it was April Fool's Day. I was just like, I was at work I was producing for a guy, his content. And I was happy for other people to tell their stories. I'll just be behind the camera. It's sweet. I like it. I love it. Unseen, unheard, just like doing my thing. Love it. So then I'm like, okay, I got to make a video, like, because I had heaps of friends because they still knew that I did that. They're like, what should we do about this? How do we boost our immune system? I'm like, you don't. What are you talking about? You're an idiot. And I'm like, yeah, I'm still angry. I'm like, you guys are retards. Like I kept using that word. So then, so I'm like, okay, I've got to make a video because I'm sick of 20 people asking me the same question. I'll make a video. I'll put it on my Facebook page and then whatever. You guys can believe it or not. I don't care. So then I put that video out and then it goes to
It's called Can You Catch a Virus, right?
Yeah. Then it goes to like 30 million people instead of 30 people. I'm like, oh no, now everyone's looking at me. And for like months, I just avoided the attention as much as I could. I'm like, leave me alone. I started pointing people in everyone else's direction, like deflect. I want to keep my job as doing this. Leave me alone. Then after months of like the call, just keep like the hero's journey, the call. I'm like, all right, fine. I'll like start talking. But I did it with a chip on my shoulder. Like, how do you not know this? Like, this is like some was genuinely helpful and I'm happy with a lot of what I did. Mm-hmm. But just looking back, I'm like, yeah, like I was like this because I hadn't occupied my role because I came out of the shadows. Just I'd given up on my voice. Yeah. I was just going to share other people's voices. To then I was finding my voice along that way. But because of how I burst onto the scene, I was this. So people needed me to be that. So I had all this support because I was calling out COVID. But then as I start saying, no, but this is also an illusion, then I'll lose those people. No, but this is also an illusion, then I'll lose those people. So then it's like, after a while, I'm like, oh, so life's given me this thing, but now I keep losing people who now think I'm a shill or now think I'm a Freemason. And then people just don't like me because I just like burst their bubble of what they thought was right in the world. And so it just kept dropping away. And it got to the point where it just kept being like, people just kept wanting me to do stuff. And I realized like, I'm making other people wealthy or I'm feeding other people's agendas of what they think we need. And what I realized that we need means, because I ran for politics as well, we need means I need. So the people that say we need, it doesn't mean we need, it means I need. It also means you do. So we need this to happen. So it means you do, and then I'll take.
Yeah.
That's what it means. And I was like, you know what? I put up a boundary. I was like, that doesn't happen anymore. Mm-hmm. That's an offer. I don't accept that offer. Even if I lose your support, your money, your whatever, that's okay. But I'm not feeding you anymore. I'm not that. I'm not what you make me to be. I'm what I need to be to step into my role. So now, thankfully, all that's changed. Now I'm like, cool, everything's just relaxed now. It's like, I just do me. I use my voice for what that needs to be. No one needs to hear it, but I need to use my voice. So you know how people have this
huge distinction.
Yeah, they go like, the world needs to hear my voice. And I'm like, it doesn't. But you need to use your voice. The world needing to hear it, I don't know about that. You know, it will be heard if it's coming from the part of you that's genuinely real.
Yeah.
But then, now that's where people just go, but wait, but what about all these influencers and celebrities? Like, that's not real. They're using their voice and millions of people are hearing it. And I'm like, yeah, but that's because it's controlled that way and people are programmed that way. Yeah. That's not real. And that's the mistake I made by seeing all these people make a lot of money and be really popular with stuff that I could explain better than them. I can show whether they're wrong with what they're talking about. I can show who they learnt that off and why it's not their words in the first place, yet they're the popular rich ones. Mm-hmm. And then people like me are struggling to pay rent in a thing because like, how do I market? Like, how do I get another customer tomorrow to come and get a treatment that's actually going to help? So that's a whole other tangent, which can be looked at 20 different ways as well, but just that's the general. So when you're comparing, you're always losing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get to that. And it takes a lot to like, you know, want to step into who you are and forget the identities, forget the feeling like it. And then that's the path of natural law.
Dude, but what you said a little bit, I loved every piece of that, by the way. What you said a little bit ago, though, that stuck out so much to me, and I'm like, oh, is you said you can't see it, but you know it. I think that is so perceptive regarding the unfolding of what's occurring in, for lack of a better term, reality right now, like on an individual and collective level. Like for those of us who are on the same page as you and I, like, because we're having so many different stories thrown at us of what may come in reality, it can be sometimes hard to picture what it is that we want to create. Like, we have a concept of it, but I think the more that we're pointing back to like whatever comes in relation to the deep, deep, deep knowing that it will all be okay. It will all work out, which is ultimately set on a foundation of knowing who we truly are, which is also something that, at least as I describe it, is something that's ineffable. You can't really explain. That's the irony. You can't name, you can't explain, you can't use with words to describe who and what you truly are, but you know it.
Yep.
In that place of knowing, I'm confident that the more we focus on that individually and collectively, what will unfold, even if we can't see it like perfectly crystal clear, is going to be absolutely incredible. Like, I'm 100% sure in that. Like, you can feel it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like it's just a deep, 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 deep knowing, man. Yeah. I love when you said that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, I guess I'll just say this now as well, because this is where I think people get, so I am blessed to have come across, so you know the expression, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear.
Yeah.
Like, you hear of all these people who do all this, like they can see the future, they can change stuff with their hands, they can do it. It's like, you either want to see that because your ego needs to know that that's right, or you'll come across a teacher when you're enough of a student that teacher will come.
Yep.
And I've been blessed to have come across like two people that I'm like, you're all just on another level of being a human being.
Yep.
And here's how I also know is because other people would see them and just go, the fuck's that? Like, they look like they're homeless or something. So one of these is a Qigong master, and he said after all of his years and years and years of practice and connecting to things that like we might not even know exist, he just said this, he just goes, it doesn't matter. He distilled his whole life of like knowing and exploring and teaching to that. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
And this brings us back to this. It's like when we believe things matter so much, it's because we have this myopic view of the world, and it's all going to shit, and we have to change it. We have to change it now. And the reason I'm really at peace now as well with what my role is to do is that I have many steps that I know I can teach, but I know it might take 20, 30, 40 years to teach those steps, and I'm cool with that, because we're not going to outrace or outpace the quote unquote agenda by trying to rush it. And that's what people made the mistake of in once 2020. They're like, oh, I'm awake now. Like, let's change this shit. It's like, bro, like all this stuff you're talking about, like I knew when I was 15. So like the reason I knew how to handle 2020 was because I'm like, oh, this is old for me. Like, this is like, I'm like, I have been training for a long time. This is like a walk in the park for me. Whereas for other people, I thought it was life and death. We're going to change it. We're going, it's like, this is just a rehash of so many other things before. Like, yes, it looks more overt in many ways, but then people like me were able to walk through it with no problem. We're never bothered. We're never whatever, could handle any of the offers and everything was just, life was normal. Life actually got better for us actually, to make it very clear. So that is available to everybody if you know where to come from. So like, I'm very at peace because I'm like, my role might be nothing will quote unquote change until my legacy reaches my kids and my grandkids. And that's when something will change. And I'm cool with that because that's, now I don't have this myopic view of I matter this much that it needs to change now. And likewise, it's like, you know how people think it's a soul trap in that? Like, no, I'm ascending, bro. Like this is my last go round for sure. And I'm like, by the very reason that you think and feel that is the reason you're coming back 50 more 100%, times at least. Like you'll only transcend because you don't need to transcend.
Yep.
That's the only way it works. If you need to transcend, you think you'll transcend, you want to transcend, you ain't doing shit.
Yep.
You're going to come back as a fucking wart on someone's asshole. That's what's going to happen to you.
Right.
Because you need to learn that lesson. You need to be humble enough to be that wart. I don't know why I said that, but on that,
I like that.
Good
That's
analogy.
Good.
And it's like, you need to be that to be able to not be that.
Yeah.
That's the way, like, paradoxes of life. That's why the Tao is such a profound word, because it's all paradox. Like, until you can realize the paradox, you're not transcending anything. You're just going to be one, then the other, then the other, then the other. You'll never transcend it. So it's this, when people can be at peace, that is the only way to change things. But because people see being at peace as being non-participatory, how are we going to, so we have to stand up to this. It's like, okay, technically, yes, in some way you're right, but how you're doing it is not how you do it. So that's the distinction, is it's not about doing nothing, because doing nothing, as the expression goes, the only reason evil proliferates is because good men sit and do nothing. don't speak up. Like, you do need to speak up. You do need to point out when something's not right. You got to pick your battles too. So it's not about doing nothing. It's being at peace with things, finding the actual way to be that will make a difference. And that's the only, but people, when they can't see that, they're like, no, but you're not holding up a thing that says, fuck the government, but you're not swearing, but you're not angry, but you're not this. So therefore, based on my construct of reality, you're not doing anything, you'll never change. So now I'll bite down harder and be more like this because I'll change it. It's like, it might feel like you're doing it, but like, look at the results. It's not doing anything. So yeah, it's like this path that I can never tell other people what to do. But the reason that I can teach what I teach is because I know all of those things so well. Mm-hmm. I know anger, I know disempowerment, I know disconnection, I know unfairness, I know injustice, because whatever you've done, I've probably done 20 degrees, like times more than you, and ended up in more pain because of it. And the reason that I've had the results that I've had in the world, which is actually helping my community in ways where businesses stayed open or reopened. People did not pay fines during COVID. People kept their family. People crossed borders. People avoided medical procedures and not only kept their jobs, but got a raise or a new position or like whatever. There's so many examples of things having positive, true effect in the world, but it came because I was no longer that guy that was like, fuck this, it's an injustice. I was like, no, that never changed anything. That made me worse, and it made other things and people worse around me. And that's how, like, unfortunately, I didn't learn, or fortunately, I didn't learn through people teaching me or through doing the right things. I learned through doing the wrong things. I learned what didn't work, which is how I landed at
That's
what.
the best teacher, though.
It is. I don't regret it at all.
Yeah.
Could have been a lot easier.
Yeah.
but just when people hear me speak, sometimes they're like, oh, and I'm like, no, I've been that. It's like when people don't vaccinate their kids. Most of them, like, I know there's some exceptions that grew up a different way. Most of them held the belief that we needed to be medicated. Things are transmissible. This is the right thing to do. Most people held that belief. They challenged and transcended that belief to end up in the like, well, we don't do that. But I actually used to believe that too. So when I speak about these things, I do remind people that I was not just as angry as you, but angrier.
Yeah.
Like, I burnt my whole life force out due to my anger. It was worse than yours. My disempowerment, my evils, my enemies. I've had that. I've seen that. I've been there. And now I'm that guy that's also now been on the other side. I'm like, it's not non-participatory. It's not doing anything. It's actually doing more than you believe is possible. So that's the distinction that I always really need people to hear as well.
How I like to ground that in reality for the people who look at someone like what you and I are talking about when it comes to here and here, right? Like, these are the two primary things that give way to the action, the words, everything else in reality is, okay, if you don't buy into the concept of like thought energy, your awareness and where you direct it, helping to co-create experience in this realm, or you attracting things to you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't mean that from like a new age manifestation lens either. Like, not at all. I'm like talking about the ether and water and how all that works. Like, there's a lot of ways to really ground this in reality. But setting that aside, to make it real for the people who look at what you and I are talking about, like, you're not fucking doing anything. Like, you're not doing anything to counteract this. What is driving your actions and your words, your thoughts and your feelings? What is driving that? Your foundational belief systems that you've accepted. So if you don't think that it matters to question and to analyze and to reconfigure your foundational belief systems and reapproach them, you're kidding yourself. Because even if you take what we're saying to be woo-woo, your actions on a daily basis in the physical world, in this reality, are merely a reflection of those thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that you have accepted about yourself, the stories you've accepted, the programming you've accepted about yourself. So it matters deeply, even when it comes to the physical action that you take on a day-to-day basis.
Matters a lot. And so because I do have a lot of empathy now, because now I've been taking this position to teach and realizing that people can misconstrue the message a lot and then just go dig down deeper into what they're doing. It's like, if you don't feel any different, then what you're doing now is the right thing to do. And protesting and that, because you're actually taking action. But what I'll suggest is that there's more than one way to take action. And just because you can't perceive a different way as having an effect, it doesn't. So what I'm saying is the lesson is still like, I made that mistake. by being a practitioner, just stay in your own lane. If you believe that to be the right lane, you don't need anybody else to validate it. You don't need to judge anybody else's lane as being like, it's not doing anything, it is doing something, it's whatever. Because inherently what you're doing is you're diminishing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So stick to what you're doing. If you think protesting is the way to go, you protest and do it to the fullness of your capacity. Like really have the experience. And if you want to take that a step further, just be willing to accept that there are other possibilities in life. And that's it. If that's as far as you go, that's as far as you go. And to that point, I actually support people that protest in that too. So for example, if somebody thinks that the only way to change things is you got to vote for the right people, you got to be aware of these shills, you got to be aware of this, you got to be aware of that, and we've got to do this protest. I'm like, all right, I will help you do that to the best of your ability. And that's what I'll do. I'll never say that's the wrong thing to do, because it's like, I learned early on in life too, you can't pull the rug out from somebody else without putting another something under them, because otherwise you now create a cord that connects you to them and you're responsible for them in ways.
Yeah.
Like you can't shift somebody from where they're at until before they're ready. And if you go in imposing yourself into somebody else's reality, you bear the consequences and the responsibility of that. And it can be very destructive to both people, because if they fall, that's your responsibility. You've got to now go and pick them up, and it drains both of you more than it needed to. So if you're going to change somebody's perspective, like almost forcibly, make sure you support them in a different way. And I would suggest not doing it at all. Like wait until there's a natural curiosity, or just life has created the moment that it's like shit's happening, shit's going down, and then like be there to the best of your capacity. And when I've realized that people don't need to know what I know, and I don't even know what I know, like when I had that realization, I'm like, that's cool. Like everything's fine. And actually, because when I was 25, I'm like, I'm writing a book, like all these idiots and more. And I'm like, I'm going to write a book. And then I met this guy who's an author, and he's like in his 70s or something. And he said, the world needs books, doesn't necessarily need your book. And I was like, true. That humbled me. And I was like, that's true. Do I need to write the book? And then if I do need, why do I need? What part of me needs to write a book? Like why?
Right.
So I realized I just didn't need to write a book at that stage of life. Just didn't need to. I just thought the world needs this. Like the world needs to, like it's too stupid over here. It's too corrupt here. There's too many injustices.
So we've been alluding to this a lot throughout this conversation. Man, there's we're just talking off camera. Like there's so many other things that we could pull on, so many threads that we could pull on with respect to this conversation. Could talk to you for hours about this, but a big concept that I think is pertinent to all of us who are seeking in this same direction, let's say, is that outsourcing piece. Like, and it's either outsourcing and projecting blame onto some supposed enemy, or outsourcing and rallying behind someone as a savior. And really, they're two sides to the same coin. But I think it's very pertinent, because I even sometimes find myself, I won't say in this trap because I'm able to catch it, but I like to speak to what's going on to my audience using real world examples, which I think can be very helpful. And there's a fine line between pointing out how those people who are ostensibly of the same mindset as me are outsourcing their own co-creative capacity, their own agency to Trump, to RFK, to these other supposed freedom fighters and government, while also putting myself in a position of pointing to them as enemies. It's a very, very slippery slope. And I think that it's important that we catch ourselves anytime we're doing that, even if we're using someone like that as an example. But just this whole conversation, I think, is incredibly important because of this point in history. Because on the surface, again, we could speculate all day whether this is actually happening or not, but let's just say on the surface, it looks like some new people are in these so-called positions of authority that are hopefully going to change things around. And I think that's a false story, but irrespective of whether it's false or not, you're putting your own agency, you're projecting it onto another man or woman. And I just want to have this conversation when it comes to outsourcing on all facets of that.
Sure, yeah. Well, first of all, that's the definition of outsourcing. It's giving your valuable currency, your valuable essence, like your purpose, your meaning, your reason, and just putting it onto something else. It's one of the versions of that. So either seeing them as the enemy or seeing them as the savior, that's your outsourcing. So yeah, just to suggest people shouldn't do that though is kind of like, okay, if people are already far enough on their own journey to pick that up, they're like, yep, got it. And thanks for the quick reminder and I'm back on path. For other people, they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So that's where, like, you know, like you said, in the position you're in, it's kind of a hard one because rather than pointing out things as like not helping, but then could also be the enemy, it's kind of like, well, where's the balance point? Where's the subtlety in that? So what I like to do is just reframe things as the story. And then like, if that's a story, that's the law. And then asking what is the law? And then what can the law be? LORE law.
Yeah.
And then how does that?
If you had an American accent, it'd be much easier to distinguish between lore and law. I love it though from the context because like going back to the very beginning of the conversation, we were like, they sound the same. I'm like, in an Australian accent, they do. But yes, okay, lore, yes.
That is absolutely true. So when we can look at that, we can also have more fun with it. It becomes more of a play. So if that's happening, we're resonating differently, aka better. We have a better ability to feel out and discern what's really going on, and a better ability to make decisions that give us a better standing in relation to the offer. So that's really just the model that I work with for myself and help others do, which helps people to do the best they can in any particular situation. Because like we've been talking about a lot of concepts where it's like, but do you ever know who you really are? And it's like, no, but it's a paradigm. It's a construct. It's like that helps you. And then how does that look? Like you don't have to know exactly what that means. It just helps you as a construct to deal with life the best that you can. So like that, like if somebody's talking about RFK and Maha and whatever else, it's like, okay, that could be true. What if it's not true? And if it's true and if it helps, what does that look like? If it's not true, it doesn't help, what does that look like? And in particular, how do I fit into that role or narrative? Whose role or narrative is that? What part of my role or narrative is either taken away or does that support? So it's just like this way to shuffle some cards around and just go, all right, where do the pieces fit? Where do I fit? How do I want to fit? And for some people, it's going to be like, yeah, I want to get all in behind that. I want to support that because that's how I see the world. And it's like, okay, if you can acknowledge that you are projecting onto that, that you see that as a solution and you're taking away a part of yourself, but you don't agree with that, you really feel like you're fulfilling a greater role as part of that, I can't argue with that. And so if that's what you feel you should do, go for it. So trying to figure out what the right answer is one of the mistakes I think we make. Because how do we even know that that's the right answer? I always used to talk about this when I was homeless, because I went through a lot of periods in my early 20s of when I was really sick and didn't have anyone around and didn't have money and all that. And then I would notice too that I would see homeless people in really bad situations. And then I would see, because I was like in an in-between, I was very functional as a homeless. I wasn't, like the type of homeless you can see. So I would see so many people saying, they just need to do this. We just need to give them that or whatever. I'm like, but I've been in these environments and that's not going to help. And also, if you're going to interfere, how do you know that they're not one more night away from figuring that out for themselves? How do you know that drunk isn't one bottle away from realizing like, man, this isn't life. Like I've got more than this. Like you don't know that. You want to get into somebody else's life and interfere. Now there's helping people and then there's interfering, and it can be a fine line. But the point is that somebody might jump fully onto that ship to then realize that, oh, this is a ship. I didn't make this ship. This is my ship. But they might need to fully jump onto the ship to realize that, to see it for themselves. You could explain it all you like, but they can't see it till they jump on. You know what I mean? So in some cases, I'm like, look, if that's how you really feel, then that's cool. I'll explain to you how I see it. Yeah. But if you want to jump on that ship, like, bon voyage.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. And like, if it serves a purpose for that individual at that time that is ultimately going to step them in the right direction. I mean, even if it doesn't step them in the right direction to leading to who they are, it's all okay. But I think that it can serve a useful purpose even to lead you to more embodiment of who and what you truly are. And it's funny how you brought up that, like, this is a useful tool, and please correct me if I'm wrong in this. Like, it's a useful thing to reflect on. Like, does this fit into my story? is this a reflection of who and what I truly am, you know? And it's like, well, how do you describe who and what you truly are? And it's like, that's the paradox, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you can't really describe it. But I think that if you truly reflect, you have that knowing of who and what you truly are that you can't see, you can't describe, and you can take each situation and truly reflect on, is this a representation? Does this represent me embodying who and what I truly am?
Yeah.
And know which decision is the right decision to make.
It's also like we can't necessarily know it, but we can be it. Like who we really are. We can't. That's the nature of the finger pointing to the moon. It's like the words aren't it.
Yeah.
The model isn't it. Like the description isn't it. If you can point to it, speak it, write it, it's not it. So it's just the finger pointing to the moon. So, but you can be it, and then you can attract like the observation that can discern or describe that for itself. But I guess like to bring it back to something of more of a, if you want to use a model that can really help, it's a natural law way to look at where our energy goes. So there is a hierarchy in natural law, which can be transcended at a certain point, but where most people are. The number one priority in life, if people want to know like what to serve or what to do, is the creator, God, life, whatever. As a level of importance under the creator is you. So that sounds super selfish, but it's not when it's contextualized in the honorable, moral way. And then below you is your significant other, your wife, your husband, or whatever. And then below that is your kids. Below that is your work. And then below that is your ministry or service or whatever to the world. And if you look at that model, you'd be like, okay, if I look in society, or you might be listening to this yourself, you're like, okay, mine's the opposite way around. Mine's everything's for the kids. But before that, everything's for work. As a man, it's like work. I got to make ends meet. I got to put food on the table. It's like, well, okay, but you might put physical food on the table, but if you're not feeding your kids in the right way with the right messages, the right feelings, the right support, which is unseen, unphysical, they're starving. So then also, so is your relationship with your wife, because you are prioritizing the kids above your relationship, and then you're putting that above yourself. So how can you be the best vessel for your family or for life or your purpose? And then, of course, where's your creator in that? Just because you go to church once a week doesn't mean you're connected to your creator, for example. So for me, like this has been a humbling experience as well, because there's been so much of compared to others later stage of life coming into my kind of role, there's been so much focus on that and just making ends meet by coming through what I've come through. So then making sure that or reframing in certain situations, like my relationship with Summer, that's more important than my role as a teacher of natural law. And we will bring kids in soon, obviously, as well. So they fit in there too, but they cannot surpass the importance of our connection to each other, which is the divine union aspect of natural law, which is a huge part of it. And then, then you've just got your service to creator. So if you have your hierarchy in that order, things can kind of figure themselves out. And sometimes we need a model to be able to transcend a model, for example. But most people would probably say they have that inverted. If they're honest, they put work and kids above their relationship or their connection to themselves or their creator. So when we're talking about things like, well, how do we change the world? And does this matter? Should we support this or not put attention there? I'm like, my attention's on my wife. My attention's on me. My intention's on my creator, my connection to that. I spend more time trying to nurture that than I do my work or trying to fix society or, change people's minds on something. Like that's of little, I won't say no importance. It's of little importance to me compared to those former three things: my wife, myself, my creator. And obviously when we have kids and a family involved, that'll be first and foremost. And I fully believe, because I know it from what I've experienced myself and seen in others, that when you have those in order, it's like pieces of the puzzle that fit in a certain way, that just whatever you do in that other realm into society is the better thing to do. And also, if you have a look at in the not too distant past, we weren't as connected to everyone else because we could affect our community, maybe, but we could affect our family and our neighborhood at the most,
See how that's been inverted now?
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
It's like now we think because we can reach people through Facebook or something else, I've got to change everyone's mind. Look at what's happening in Egypt or Ethiopia or London. And I'm like, I live in, a small town in Australia. So while I'm more fixated on that and trying to change the quote unquote the world, I'm changing nothing in the process. So the argument of kind of like what helps or who should be focusing on what, I'm like, if you just bring it back to creator, you, your significant other, whatever it is, then your kids, then your work, and then your ministry, and well below that, your Instagram or your Facebook, life will work out in the right order. But while you invert that and you think you're changing the world, it's like you change your family dynamic, change what you can in your neighborhood, meet people, talk to people, because I do, and because I'm in that position, like it is an illusion to think I'm changing the world because I have an Instagram account and I say something that sounds good and feels like it's doing something to thousands of people. Like that, and if I go, well, good, I did my day's work, I feel good about myself, but I neglected my wife or my connection to my creator, I failed for the day, even if I got 1 million likes on a post or made $1 million from selling an ebook or something. Like that's debt. You're indebted now. You kind of got it wrong, so to speak. So yeah, I honestly feel that things figure out the way they're supposed to be in divine order based on your unique expression in the world. If you get the original order, correct and honor that.
I could see where, and like even for me sometimes, like the pressure, especially with more kids, the pressure to provide makes it so easy for that to flip itself on its head, where it's like, under the guise of, oh, I am putting my wife and my kids first, I need to work. And then that comes out of balance. And what I'm having to really reflect on, and I think that's like where this ankle injury came about, and I said this on Instagram right after it happened, is that I've been so caught up in my thoughts, like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Like, we're about to move to a different house. How am I going to financially support them in this? How am I going to like get this part of my business running in order to make enough money to be able, like all the things, all the stories, like the narratives, all the programming that comes back. And it's like this ankle injury happened because it was God, creator, source, whatever you want to call it, putting me back in a place of, no, you have to trust. You have to trust. You have to trust and slow down and focus on what's right in front of you, and stop trying to do your way into success, into being able to financially provide. And it's so funny. It's like when I look back at various points in my life where I thought, like, one point in 2023, Kylie and I had $4 in our bank account. And I'm like, I'm screwed. I look back on that. I'm like, something happened just after that where I was provided for. I've always been provided for in every single instance, every single fucking time, man. And I think this is kind of rhetorical, but like, what would you say to someone who's like, well, it's so easy to say that, like, put those first, but I got to fucking work to provide for them. So I got to give all my attention to work. Yeah.
Well, you're going to keep getting into debt with that mindset for sure. And I've been there, like I have, like overextend myself, work way. It's a very, it's one of the shadow traits of the masculine is you will do a big disservice to yourself, and as a result, a disservice to those that you're trying to provide for by do. So the expression then would be more, do less. The Taoist quote is doing nothing and leaving nothing undone, which to the untrained eye will see an illusion of doing nothing as in like you're not productive, you're not whatever, but you're far more productive in that state. So it's just the more you can be and being truly who you are, everything's provided for. That's we're trained. It's a program to think, work more, do more, extend more into the night to be a man and do more work, to provide. That's honorable, that's respectful. And it's like when you talk about like, war veterans, like we just had one of the Memorial Days in Australia where it's like, support the Anzacs that sacrificed and for our freedom. And it's like, that's not what it was. But I won't disrespect the men that went and died for war, because in their heart of hearts, they believed that they were fighting for freedom. So I do respect that, but I'm not going to like celebrate this day because it's the day is an illusion, a fast. They died for no real reason, but they believe. So I respect the being.
Respect the nobility of the person who signed up to be a part of the military.
Absolutely, because they believe that that's what they were doing, and that's how they lived and that's how they died. And I fully respect that. Like, there's a lot of honor in that. But like when we're looking at natural law, it's like, okay, well, we can't just like hide behind what feels good, and like we've got to look at the reality of things if we want things to change. And that means being honest with yourself first and foremost, and what things really are. Now, you don't have to say that because that can offend a lot of people, but you have to know that and be that. If you want to be in line with the natural laws, like if you want things to change or you want to play your role in life, it might it might at some point require acknowledging that, whether internally or externally.
Mhm.
And when we, come down to that whole aspect of like, no, but I've got to do that, but I'm in that position and I need to, it's like, yeah, you do. And you might at this point in time, because you've got yourself to this pain teacher again, you might need to do a double shift. You might need to do another. But if you don't learn that lesson, you will end up in that situation again if you do not receive the lesson from that teacher. And it's a lesson in humility, because as a man, any man listening will relate. It's like, you do gain validation, you do gain identity, you do gain currency and feel good about yourself by extending in that way. But you talk to Alec, who just busted his ankle, anyone who's like lost, like the amount of times I've done injuries to myself, that's the pain teacher telling me I'm out of line. It's
100%.
like, Tom, you're not listening, buddy. You're doing too much. You don't need to do more. You need to be more. The reason you're doing more is because you're refusing to be more. So you're outsourcing, externalizing into working harder. That gives you the impression of being a man, but you need to give yourself the impression of being a man, because you're not actually being a man. So grow the fuck up, be a man. You don't need to do that. Just be more, don't do more. And you will look after your relationships better, your children, your role in life. But until we learn that, we're always going to have to wear a heart on our sleeve, be more masculine, be tougher, be harder, and not smarter. And that's just like, well, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just like, you have a choice. That's the thing. That's natural law. Everything's an offer. You have a choice. When are you going to decide? And it takes a lot of humility and a lot of like swallowing your pride to decide, because but when I decide, then what?
Dude, the whole thing is so incredibly confronting too. And I've shared this before on a number of episodes, where it's like, whether it's because I believe it or because this is how things are, or it's really ironically a mixture of both. Symptoms of illness, whether it's like a so-called respiratory infection or like an ache in my lower back or this ankle injury, every single time without fail is my own doing. And like, I can point back to exactly what happened every single time. There is no external thing outside of me coming to attack me. There is no, oh, that person did this and it made me feel this way, or it frustrated me and that made me sick. It's like every single time it ultimately comes back to me, and it was always my own doing. And that is so fucking incredibly confronting. And on the flip side of that, incredibly empowering, because it's just more emphasis on how we are co-creating this experience. But like I said, like it can be so fucking confronting, man, because there is no more blaming anyone outside of you for anything. There is no enemies. Like, I know you say that all the time. There is no external enemies. There can be an illusion of an external enemy showing up that's ultimately a manifestation of how you are showing up yourself, though, in order to teach you, to bring you back into embodiment if you take the lesson, just like you said. But there are no external enemies, and there's no one else to blame except for yourself, which, like, fuck, that can be so confronting.
Yeah, it can. But when you're willing to like heed that call and go on that hero's journey, it always pays off. And what I've also noticed is that when somebody might end up in that situation where they're like, but I've got to put food on the table, I've got no money left. Like, I've been there. I know a lot of people have been in that situation. I believe it's a very, very valuable situation, because you can learn how resilient you really are. And like you just expressed, when you look back, you're like, but wait, every time I trust, I'm always provided for it. It shows up in a different way, but it always. So surely now I can let go a bit more. So the expression there is let go, let God, because you just like get into that position where you're like, hey, just trust. Doesn't mean you take your foot off the gas of like actually being participatory in your own life. Because what I have seen guys do, and this is like absolutely not the right thing to do, is they get to that stage and then they just disconnect completely, and they leave their family and whatever, and they go to India on some kind of like excursion to like meet a guru and find himself and just like meditate and do all this other stuff. And it's like, that's not what I'm saying to do when it's like, be more, do less, because that's the total opposite.
No.
But that's actually more common than you think. Like, just, yeah. So anyway, like learning how to feed your family in the ways that really matter, like you said. So everything that shows up in the body physically first presents itself in the etheric field. And if you're too closed off to see it, feel it, hear it, heed the call, it shows up in the body as an injury, an illness, or whatever else. So these are all caught on these electrical loops in the emotional and the spiritual bodies, and the mental bodies too. So when we can start to remove those, we have less interference that then interferes in our family too. So like I said before, you can feed your family all you want physically, but you could be leaving so much off the table in the ways that it really counts. So you end up with resentful, angry, depressed kids, despite giving them food, a car, a college, funds and whatever. That's not what they need. They need the intangible tangibles, which is the real currencies that you provide your family with. And beyond that, if you don't have a family yet, like that's how if you want to have a family, that's how you'll get the most out of things, but also just for yourself and your connection to your creator. Like that's what you got to focus on is how you are feeding these things. And you might be feeding negativity. You might be feeding your programs. You might be feeding a belief system that doesn't serve you. So all these words are there for a reason. Likewise, just into the world a lot of people are in, what is your Facebook page feeding you? That's why it's called a feed. It's food. It's like most of it goes against the principles of hear no evil, speak no evil, and see no evil, which doesn't mean shut your eyes and ears off to the world and be ignorant, live under a rock. It just means don't allow negativity to permeate your being. And because each one of those affects an organ, say eyes, liver, ears, kidneys, mouth, stomach, so that you will deplete your own system by allowing evil to enter in through those means, those mediums. So as a result, if that happens and you deplete yourself, how can then you feed your family or your connection to yourself? Like everything's depleted. So it's this merry-go-round of, okay, I've always just got to like reshuffle things. And some people need it or most of us need it on a daily basis, even an hourly basis, like a remembering. So we get caught up in reactory living, and also then just buying into the next thing and being taken off path and thinking we're doing well. But then if we ask questions on the hour, every hour of the day, what am I serving in the hierarchy of creator, me, my wife or husband, my kids, then my work, then my ministry, that would probably help a lot. Because
so that's what I was going to ask. Is that what you do? Like, because we're all subject to falling back into our conditioning. Is that what you do when you fall back into it? Or
yeah, it doesn't mean I always succeed either, because sometimes you're so deep into your program, it takes hours to get out of it.
Oh, dude, I know.
And so that's like, so that's why,
like even there's sometimes like I'm aware that I'm in my fucking program, but like I got to be in it right now because I don't know other way. I don't know how to snap out of it other than to just like wallow in it for another hour or two.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I fucking hate that, but that's just how it is sometimes.
So that's why there's a lot of talk in that nowadays, and a lot of successful people in mediums that sell you on just changing that immediately. Like these 2-day courses you can do that do this kind of therapies that, immediately you never have to deal with that emotion again, or you never have to. No, well, it's not true. That's the thing. But
okay. That's what I was going to say.
But that's why, because you're having the real experience of needing to just choosing that you will go through this experience to be able to transcend the experience, but it's an avoidance mechanism to go, I'll just do this. I won't name but there's plenty of them out there. It's like, I'll do this method, and this method gets rid of my negative emotions, my spirals, my programs, my traumas, my triggers. And it's like, but that doesn't work that way. You're just being sold an illusion. So when you're willing to have the experience, there's honor in that, there's morality in that, even if it feels quote unquote negative. And, just being humble enough to just go, like, I'm not that much of a man yet. Like, I have to face that daily. Yeah. And I teach principles of natural law, and I even teach principles of masculinity to men who want to embody masculinity. And I'm like, I don't do all of these 100%. I'm just talking about the principles. Yeah. And I have to meet these principles myself daily, which is why the biggest gift to me out of the last 5 years was meeting Summer, because that came through the place, the time, the circumstances brought us together in that period. And everything that I got out of the last 5 years, like, that's by far the most valuable thing. And it's what's taught me the most, like more than I could read the Tao 50 times over. It's not going to teach me as much as having that union. And I fail in it, like, probably daily. Yeah. But I'm also improving a lot daily. And so in that is the lessons, because I'm willing to have them. I'm not just going to go, let's see a therapist. Let's do a psych this or a, this method of or whatever. Let's method it. Yeah. So no, let's have life, have the experience, and be willing to have that and be humbled by life itself and wanting to meet it. It's just always, it's when people don't want to meet life. So because I've got 20 years of experience in holistic health and see so many people outsourcing to modalities and whatever to heal. And it's like, no, just meet life, you'll meet the healer. All the the methodologies, the modalities, the techniques, all they do is prepare you to be able to meet life better. But if you spend your whole life in the modality or chasing the next thing, more knowledge in this, like, no, but why do this not exist? Or why does that work? And you spend your whole life doing that, looking for another reason why it's the right thing. It's like you're never meeting life. It's just like the training is, these things don't have zero value. It's just that they're not applied to life.
Yeah.
So when you're willing to meet life, you'll meet the healer. When you're just wanting to focus on the modality and get better at the modality and find another reason the modality is good, then find another modality that supports that one. It's like, that's cool. But if you never meet life, you'll never meet the healer. None of that's the healing. It's the training ground. It's the way to prepare to meet life. And it's why you can see a lot of people who have a lot of knowledge in a lot of areas, but they might not get the acute injury like you. Like, in real time, I was out of alignment here. It showed up, bang, and it got me.
Yep.
But you take responsibility. You know what it was. You address that. And hopefully you learn a lesson. That particular thing won't happen again.
Mm-hmm.
But then you see people who gradually over time are just like putting on a bit more weight, and a bit more weight. And then it doesn't matter what they eat or exercise, or it doesn't change. They're just like, I'm overweight now. I just won't shift. Millions of more dollars accruing in their businesses, overweight. So, and same with like energy or vitality or skin or something. It's like, it's not acute. It's just this chronic thing that seems to accrue over time in relation to maybe their business expanding or their social media expanding or like whatever. Something's expanding while something else is also growing that you don't particularly like. And that's because we're not actually in alignment with the natural laws. We're avoiding something. It's an expression or an illusion of something that needs to be looked at. And because that's not being looked at, we experience life this particular way. But when we're willing to meet that, some people might need to lose their following, lose their business, start over again. But if that's the case and you're willing for that to happen, the likelihood is that doesn't need to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you're willing to meet life in that way and humble yourself to that point means that the lesson is learned. That probably doesn't have to disappear. It might even triple. But
can I give a real world example of that real quick? So during Kylie's home birth, there was a point where we did have a midwife with us, and she was monitoring our baby's heartbeat in between contractions, and our baby wasn't recovering like you would want them to. And it got to a point of us having to come to terms with, and I didn't verbalize this to Kylie, and her experience was completely different than mine. Kylie's experience was, okay, I might need to transfer to the hospital, which would have been devastating to her based on her preconceived ideas of like how the birth should happen, especially since, okay, her first birth, hospital birth, really traumatic, second birth in a birthing center, basically just a house, right? So based on me doing that, the next order of events would be having a successful home birth. And, she has all these stories in her head that are starting to come up like, oh, if I don't do this successfully, then what does that say about me? All these narratives, right? And for me, again, I didn't verbalize this to Kylie. I'm like, shit, our baby's heartbeat isn't recovering. Like, am I facing the possible death of my baby? Especially because we've had a lot of friends around us who have had really traumatic experiences. A couple friends of ours who lost a baby at full term. And it was so fucking wild, man. The moment that we accepted, like I accepted that, again, I didn't express it verbally, like, oh, our baby might die. I'm not going to say that to Kylie, but that's what's going on in my head, right? The moment I like reached a genuine place of acceptance, like, okay, whatever we need to do, we'll do. And the moment Kylie reached her place of acceptance, we looked each other in the eye and accepted what, the midwife was indicating to us. Everything changed. Kylie wrote about this on her Instagram, man. And like everything changed the moment that we, like you said, met life where it was and accepted that. We didn't have to do any of those things. And the birth turned out perfectly. The moment we accepted it, our baby's heartbeat started recovering like crazy. And then like 45 minutes later, baby born.
That's beautiful.
Right?
Yeah.
But it was like, and it was so cool because in that moment, I knew what that message was. And yet still, on a day-to-day basis, I fall back into my own fucking conditioning after seeing that incredible experience. And like, I'm not saying that to shame myself, but it's like, God dang, man, life is so beautiful. Here's this beautiful reminder of how it all works. And I think it's so amazing that those things pop up in our reality to remind us.
Yeah, they do. It's always, so kids in a lot of different teachings, the kids are the teacher. It's not that we invert that in society where it's like, you will do what I say, I'm the adult, I know better, and et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, we're here, feel we're here to guide and protect, because the nature of life is that the innocent needs guidance and protection, but it doesn't need to be told what to do. Insofar as that is more than likely there to teach you. You need to humble yourself in that respect. And therefore, like obviously your child, and especially with the name and everything, it was the gift to actually teach you that in that moment. If you let go, if you you accept, you're willing to meet life, it's like the heartbeat just shows that resonance is there to show you in real time that that's how life works. It's like, what a gift from that child. That, like, mom and dad, this is how life works. And you're like, damn, thanks, baby.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, the whole thing around like the name, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. Last thing I want to touch on is your new offerings. Like, obviously we've touched on a lot of things related to natural law, but you've sort of packaged that up into a way to communicate this, like going very, very deep with people, and all that will be in the show notes for those who are interested. But I just want you to share what you're working on, man, because again, like, we could go on for hours about this topic, but I'd rather people just go look at what you've packaged up. I think it is much better done that way rather than me asking questions. So yeah, please share.
Thanks. So it is of that nature. That's why I'm just focusing on this particular topic of natural law, because it can go in so many different ways. So what I found is that if people can just have a framework by which to start embodying the way it works, have tangible means to actually start implementing it in their life, then that's my service that can best be done. And also on that, on that point, that's why I'm much more comfortable, like I said, with the world now, is that I found my place to be. And whether that pays off in the next year or it pays off 100 or 200 years down the track, it's like, this out of my hands. I'm just here to show up and do what I can do to the best of my ability. So we started the Humble Kingdom late last year. The reason we called it that is because that is the nature of what's inside of us. It is our kingdom we're here to inherit, and it is of a humble nature. Like, it has to be that. And so we have the Beginner's Guide to Natural Law, which is a beginner's guide to understanding these principles, how you can relate those to life, and also like realize it's a journey, and it's got almost nothing to do with things like fines and, oppression and all that. It's like, forget that for now. Work on what you can work on. Like, that's stuff that you can change now. You change that, then you, by a default mechanism, can deal with those things more effectively. Mm-hmm. So we had the Beginner's Guide. Then there is Summer and I are currently working on a natural law way to do marriage and contracts and agreements in that way, as well as other like smaller products that are going to help people to just learn the tangibles of what's the natural law principle, how does that play out in respect to what we have as a program, and then how do we like transcend that to make our way into the world in a more empowered way that is not working against something, but it is working for something. So that's where like the whole natural law thing, to summarize, it levels the playing field. When people are running from something or they're trying to resist something, it's like that's only going to show up as that in another way. So rather than needing to do that, if you can just get to know yourself, remember who you are, and then what is your expression, and focus on that rather than resisting something else, you're going to find that life works out just a lot more beautifully and favorably. And I do believe that we all have that as a birthright, to live a life of beauty and have a life of joy, but it has to be chosen. It has to be accepted, which is a big responsibility. And then it has to be lived like every day. You got to like look at the way that you're choosing to express into the world, what you're allowing in through your eyes and ears, and allowing to interfere with that, because as you begin to choose that, life will also show up just to test you. It's like, are you sure? Like, do you think you know, or do you know? So it's like, all right, sure. You want beauty? You want joy? You want creation? You want wealth? Absolutely. Like, life is here to support that, but do you really want it? Because I'm going to show you this today. This word's going to come at you today. This offer's going to come at you today. And are you going to cave? Or are you going to see that as the offer that it is? Realize the agreements, transcend that, and then, okay, now you got it. Now you got the keys to the kingdom. But the test will be there.
I'm laughing because that describes my experience so well. Man, this was such an awesome conversation, Tom. Thank you so much for being here, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it a lot.
Bye.